report. Please be seated.
All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you so much for participating in this. The jury selection process has been long and hard, and you were the 12 that we finally decided on, or 13 maybe, I think it was 13, right? Sit together, listen to the evidence, and at the end of the trial, I'll give you some more instructions. Let me introduce our folks to you at this time. The sheets from y'all.
Lance, you'll get the sheets from them.
I've already met Lance, the bailiff. Okay. This is Zach, the clerk. I'm Jim, the judge. All right. This case is State of North Carolina versus Rory Thomas. This is the criminal case. The defendant is charged with first-degree murder.
No.
No?
Absolutely wrong.
Oh, wrong case. Okay, I'm sorry. All right.
Alex's face.
This is Rory Thomas versus Aria Davis. Aria? Where's Roy? Okay. You stand up, please, ma'am. And I believe she's the personal representative of who?
Sloan Thomas.
Okay. This is a wrongful death case, right?
Yes.
All right, you can have a seat. Dr. Davis, if you stand up. And the plaintiff's counsel are Ben Peoples. Just going to stand up and take a look at all y'all. Victoria Jenkins. Olivia Russ. And y'all have a paralegal with you, Ray Stewart. Okay? All right, you have a seat. Dr. Davis is represented by Evan Hutchinson.
Evan.
All right, let you correct me. My wife's Greek, and she has a strange name to pronounce, and I try hard to correct people and to not be uppity about it, but I appreciate being corrected. Eric Baki? Is that Baki? Is that famous Baki?
Famous Baki.
Okay. Natalina?
Natalia.
Sorry. Carrie? And the paralegal is going to stand up and tell you what her name is.
Deborah Zelekat.
One more time.
Deborah Zelekat.
But what do we call it?
Yes, the next question.
Joyce.
Joyce? That's my mother's name. All right. Any motions before we get started? Both sides ready for opening statements?
Yes, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the lawyers are ready for opening statements. Opening statements are a forecast of what the attorney believes the competent and admissible evidence will be. An opening statement is not evidence and must not be considered by you as evidence. What says the plaintiff?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Ben Peoples. I'm co-counsel for plaintiff Sloan Thomas, being represented here today by his mother, Rory Thomas. I must ask you all this. Have you ever had a dream that you would do anything to accomplish? Now, imagine this. You're an athlete with a dream of making it big in your respective sport. But it isn't for you. It is for your family. For your loved ones. It's for kids who went through hardships growing up. It's for those who went through these hardships each and every day. To help release their anxieties and to begin a new life. That was Sloan Thomas's dream. A dream that he would no longer be able to realize because he is no longer with us today. Because of the decisions made by the defendant, Aria Davis, and his negligence of Sloan, not only as a human being, but as a client.
You know it. You know this case inside and out. You can do
Sloan Thomas was first prescribed Vicodin HP when he was a student at Utopia High School. The defense will argue that Aria Davis did the right thing by prescribing these medications to our deceased plaintiff. However, we will prove today that this was the improper medication for the injury. And instead of taking into consideration the strength of the Vicodin HP, an opioid that he was prescribed, he instead elected to
You got it. You got this.
Just tell the story.
Just tell them. Tell them the story. It's a conversation you've had with me and your teammates. Tell them the story. You know this inside out. If you need to look at your notes, look at your notes real quick.
excuse me, I'm sorry. The defense will tell you that Aria Davis was not negligent towards our client. However, we will prove here today that
You got this. What did you prove him? What did he do? What did he supposedly do? Don't worry about the words, just tell them the story. That's what an opening is, just tell them the story. Look at your notes and tell them the story. And if you need to use their notes, use them.
the defense will tell you that Aria Davis was not negligent towards our client. However,
What did Ari Davis do? Just tell them. What did he do to your phone? You know what he did. What did he do with Vicodin? Victoria, you want to help him out?
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, jury and your honor. So today we're telling the story of Sloan Thomas and how we feel as prosecution, or as we feel that he was overprescribed vitamin HP. He had a series of injuries at the beginning of 2013, and for that he was prescribed vitamin HP. As he started college, he also was prescribed that during another incident that occurred. Today, we want to present to you why we feel the doctor did not follow protocol. Why we feel as though he not only did not look into our client or our client's child, but he did not follow the standards as a doctor. So today we're going to introduce evidence and go to the court. Tell you a little about our client's child. He was a great athlete. He was working hard in school. He was talented. He wanted to do the NBA. He had dreams and aspirations. So today we want you to look at this case from his perspective. A tragic life that ended so soon, had so many dreams, was so hopeful, yet was devoured, crushed because of not following protocol.
Okay, what says the defense? Will be an opening now or later?
Now you're up.
Okay?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Ammons, and I'm co-counsel for the defendant, Dr. Arrington. Today you're going to hear a case with two very different sides. And this case is a tragedy, don't get me wrong. And it is every parent's worst nightmare. And throughout this case, you're going to hear some very terrible things and very negative things said about my client that I shall not say. Dr. Davis is a licensed medical professional who has helped and treated patients at Utopia University Sports Medicine Center for over a decade. And over that time that he has spent working at the hospital, he encountered Sloan Thomas 3 times for 3 separate sports-related injuries. The first one being in February of 2013 for a broken ankle when Sloan was in high school. The second being March of 2017 when Sloan tore his rotator cuff in a neighborhood basketball game. And finally, in December of 2017, when Sloan Thomas re-injured his right ankle and left shoulder while playing in a basketball game for Utopia University. So everyone in this room has dreams and aspirations for their life. For Sloan wanted to play basketball professionally in the NBA. And as a professional, Dr. Davis only wants the very best for his clients. For Sloan, that being getting back onto the basketball court and trying to turn those dreams into a reality. So over this case, you're going to hear from 3 witnesses. They're going to go and reiterate points that myself and my colleagues are going to prove that to show that Dr. Davis is not responsible for the loss of Sloan Thomas.
Objection. Argumentative.
Overruled.
Guess who's the injuries?
That's why she objected to get you off track. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to prove.
Okay. So we're going to hear from 3 witnesses that are going to prove, or going to show that Dr. Davis was not negligent in his treatment of Sloan Thomas. You'll first hear from Dorian Wilson, who was Sloan Thomas's rehab counselor at Four Seasons Recovery Center, and can testify to Sloan's recovery from addiction and his overall rehabilitation. Second, you'll hear from Dr. Finn Morrissey, a friend and a colleague of Dr. Davis, who's actually a former representative of Power Pharmaceuticals, who specializes in opioid prescriptions. He will be able to testify to the overall, the overall work of Dr. Davis as a physician and overall as a medical professional. Finally, you'll hear from Connor Harlan, who's an athletic trainer at Utopia University, who worked with Sloan in his recovery process from these sports injuries. The plaintiff claims that my client was negligent in the treatment of Sloan Thomas, and that ultimately led to the death of her son. That is simply not, as tragic as that is simply not true. And it is not true for several reasons. Mostly being that this whole incident could have been prevented by one simple task that could have prevented everything from happening. And we will get into that later. There are several things wrong that claim most of this whole incident could have been prevented by one simple task. On top of that, what kind of best friend takes a recovering addict to a party to try and buy prescription drugs? Would you ever put, if you had a suicidal friend, would you ever put a loaded firearm in your weapon? Would you provide them with something that could potentially cause them harm if you're really their friend? That night that Sloan Thomas overdosed, Dr. Davis was not at the party, the New Year's Eve party. The night that Sloan overdosed, he did not overdose on drugs prescribed from Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis wants the very best for his clients, as I said earlier. He treated his patients to the best of his ability and wanted the very best, and that includes Sloan Thomas. How was Dr. Davis to know of an accurate familial history if it was not provided to him? How was Dr. Davis supposed to know about Sloan Thomas's stint in rehab at Four Seasons Recovery Center? there are too many variables to go and pin negligence on my client, and that would ultimately claim that he was responsible for the death of Sloan Thomas. By the end of this trial, you will see that our client, in this trial, you'll see that the very unfortunate loss of a son, plagued by addiction, has passed too soon. This terrible illness led to the death of Sloan Thomas and not being proper treatment by my client.
Okay, call the first witness. Wait a second, the jurors don't have, Lance, come get up. You have something to write with. Give them all pencils. All right, we take minutes, ladies and gentlemen. We don't limit that pencil. Right, call your first witness.
Your Honor, they need to be sworn in. Do you want them one at a time?
That'll be good.
Your Honor, we would like to swear in Lori Thomas, the mother of Sloan.
I can hear you, but I can't understand you. Better speak up.
Your Honor, we would like to swear in Lori Thomas, the mother of
Call
Sloan.
Rory Thomas. Yep. Come on up, Ms. Thomas. Raise your right hand. Don't put it on the Bible, just raise your right hand.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay, that's it right here.
We need to know your religion and talk out so that they can hear you.
I may proceed.
Please state your name for the court, ma'am.
Lori Thomas.
And Ms. Thomas, before I'd like to begin, I would
Louder, please.
like to say I'm deeply sorry for your loss. Can you tell me your relationship with Sloan?
Sloan Thomas was my son.
And can you tell me your job description?
I'm a curator for the rare book collection at UTB University.
And can you tell the court about Sloan's character?
Sloan was an outstanding young man. Ever since he was a little boy, he was outgoing, athletic. He used to take all the neighborhood kids on outdoor adventures. He used to hold an outdoor adventure camp for all the neighborhood kids. He was a great boy.
Did you have a good and close relationship with Sloan?
Yeah. It was always just me and him. His father, Joe, passed away when he was only 5 months old. So, considering it was only me and him had a pretty great relationship. We were very close.
Did he have dreams and goals, Miss Thomas?
Yeah. Sloan was a very ambitious, goal-oriented child since he was a kid. He loved basketball. Basketball was his passion. So he wanted to play pro ball, and he did everything he was on the right track to get there. But bigger than pro ball, he also wanted one day to hold his own ecology adventure camp and provide children a chance to get to explore the outdoors for city kids that maybe would have never gotten to do that otherwise.
Miss Thomas, do you miss those conversations you had with your son?
Every day.
Did you enjoy talking to Sloan about his future, just those one-on-ones with each other?
Yeah, I miss him every day.
And could you tell us about Sloan's basketball game, which happened on February 5th, 2013?
Oh, I'll never forget that game. They were playing Bethlehem High at home. I was sitting in the front row, as I usually did when I attended his basketball games. I saw him scrambling under the hoop for a rebound, and I just saw one of the players in the opposing team just step on his right ankle, and he went down. My heart sunk. I did not know what to do. And of course, Sloan, being the guy he was, tried to get back up, but when he couldn't, the athletic trainer came, and he was taken off the court.
After this incident occurred, can you tell me what precautions you did to get Sloan treatment?
The athletic trainer at high school recommended that we take Sloan to Dr. Aria Davis, who was an orthopedic surgeon, and so I scheduled an appointment about it.
Did you feel when treated at Dr. Davis's office, he followed proper protocol?
You know, I did think that it was very quick, the appointment. Usually when I do go to our family doctor, he's very thorough, going through things and explaining things to us and making sure that before we leave there, that we understand fully the diagnosis and any precautions and steps we have to take that's going on.
Did Dr. Davis review his medical history fully and detailed before diagnosing him?
Briefly, if at all.
Speaking of the medical history, why did you feel the need to leave out medical history involving family addiction?
So we had a very dark history of substance abuse in the family. And I mean, are you a parent? If you're a parent, you would know that you just want to protect your child from anything. And this dark history was something I thought that I wanted to protect Sloan from, that I wanted to protect Sloan from. Was it the right choice? I don't know, but that's just a decision I made as a parent.
Did Dr. Davis prescribe any medication or perform anything on Sloan after?
That day he did an x-ray and we found out that Sloan had a fractured ankle. His right ankle was fractured. No surgery was needed, but he did get prescribed a 7-day course of Vicodin HP, and he was to do physical therapy sessions after his cast got off. We went to weekly follow-up visits until his cast was off as well.
After prescribed the medication, did he give you any cautions or warnings about the medicine?
No, he did not.
And after visiting Dr. Davis's office, did Sloan and you take those steps after receiving the treatment following?
Yes, ma'am. He did take the medication as prescribed, and we followed up with physical therapy. We went to weekly appointments.
So after his incident senior year, where did he plan to attend?
Sloan was a phenomenal basketball player. I mean, he was offered scholarships to Villanova, UNC Chapel Hill, Kentucky University. I was so eager when he decided to go on full scholarship to Utopia University, stay close to home.
Did he do well during his freshman year attending Utopia University?
Yes, he did very well. He seemed to be very happy there. He was killing it in basketball. He was doing well.
Did Sloan come home for any breaks during that semester?
Yes, Sloan actually came home for spring break, and he would come home a couple weekends ago.
Did an incident happen on March 15, 2017 during his spring break?
Yes, ma'am. So, being so close to home, I was the house where all the basketball boys would come and hang out. So one day, Sloan over spring break came home with some of his friends to do laundry. They were playing a pickup game outside, a pickup basketball game, and I had just come out to see if the boys wanted to eat some pizza. When, of course, I saw Sloan go up for a dunk, and one of his friends accidentally bumped him, and he fell, outreached on his left arm, and it just wasn't pretty.
Did you take any actions after this incident occurred?
Well, he told me that everything was fine at first, but that night he couldn't sleep because he was in so much pain. So the next day, I took him to see Dr. Davis once again.
Did Dr. Davis perform any exams?
Yes, Dr. Davis actually performed an MRI on my son, and during the MRI, he discovered that he had a torn rotator cuff and that he would need surgery.
And after surgery, did the doctor prescribe anything or say anything else to you?
Very quickly, could you rephrase that question?
After he received surgery, did he prescribe anything to Sloan?
Oh, yes, sorry, I heard the question. After surgery, Sloan was prescribed a 30-day prescription for Vicodin HP that was 180 pills.
Your Honor, may I approach the bench?
Bench or witness?
Witness. I want to.
Sure, either one.
Okay. I want to introduce Exhibit 1.
Thomas, can you identify what this is?
Yes, this is.
Okay, when the two of you get up there like that, your voices drop because you're talking to each other. You still need to talk to everybody, so most time you keep your voices up.
This is Vicodin HP, a bottle of Vicodin HP, and the actual pill.
And Ms. Thomas, how did you know this is Vicodin HP?
My son was prescribed this medication by Dr. Vonnegut.
And,
Objection, Your Honor. Could you tell the counsel to sit down?
Sure, but I'm not going to. Oh, that's your objection.
And will this help you with your testimony?
Yes, ma'am, well.
Miss Thomas, is this the same bottle that your son was prescribed both times by Dr. Davis?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I would like to publish this as evidence and publish it to the jury.
It's not going to introduce the evidence, I don't think.
Okay. Or publish this as an exhibit.
What is it you want to do with it?
Publish it to the jury.
Offer it into evidence?
Yes.
Objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay. Plaintiff's Exhibit 1 is admitted without objection.
Ms. Thomas, did he have any follow-up doctor visits?
Yes, he did have follow-up doctor visits, but he was now an adult and in college, so I did not attend these follow-up appointments with him.
Would you state that you trusted Dr. Davis with Salone?
Of course, don't we all trust our doctors with our medical?
And can you tell the court about June 6th and what happened when you came home?
On June 6th, Salone was home for the summer, and he had been acting a little strange. You know, staying up late, sleeping all day, staying up late. So one day I came home for lunch, hoping to speak to him, and when I walked into the room, into the house, there was some loud music playing, so I walked into Salone's room, and him and his friend were playing video games. And on the counter, that's not what shocked me. What shocked me, on the counter, there was an empty Vicodin bottle, and then another Vicodin bottle that was not prescribed to my son, and then there were beer bottles.
After seeing the bottles and the pills, what did you do?
I mean, I was heartbroken, frustrated, infuriated. Me and Salone started talking about it, seeing what was happening, and his friend left somewhere in the mix and all that. Salone reassured me that he was not drinking, that the beer bottles did not belong to him, but he told me that he had been in pain and that he had finished his prescription early and then gotten some prescriptions from someone at the university because he was in so much pain.
After seeing all that, what did you do?
Well, I heard about the Four Seasons Recovery Center from a neighbor who had sent their child there, and I knew that Salone was not going to be happy with me sending him to rehab, but it was what was going to be best for him, so I packed up his stuff and I sent him off to the Four Seasons Recovery Center to get better.
When he received a spot at the rehabilitation center, did you call Dr. Davis to let him know?
Yes, I called Dr. Davis's office that same day. The phone call never went through. It said the voicemail box was full, and I was not able to leave a voicemail.
Did you try another time after that?
I did try the next day, and I did try to leave a message, but no one ever came back. And I didn't receive word from Dr. Aria Davis's office ever again, but I did call twice and tried to leave a message.
When coming back from the rehab center, how was Salone's attitude?
I mean, he was doing better. He seemed like he had really reflected on his behavior and his addiction while he was at the rehab center. He came back and he was better. He was doing better. Almost back to his normal self.
After coming back, he went back to basketball. What incident occurred on November 30th, 2017?
On November 30th, 2017, I was again watching the game. There were NBA scouts there, a college game this time, and I watched Sloan dove for a ball that was going out of bounds, and he fell just really uncomfortably. I can't even recreate the way that he fell. It was just very uncomfortable, and he ended up hurting again his right ankle and his left shoulder, which had already been injured before.
When that incident occurred, what actions did you take?
The athletic trainer, again, saw him there. He got taken off the court. I was really concerned about him, but he assured me that everything was fine, that he just needed to rest up. He's a college student. I assumed that he was fine, so I just left it to him, and he called me the next day and told me he was feeling better, and that he was just in a little bit of pain, but that he was not going to go see a doctor anymore.
Did he call you about any pain that he may have had afterwards?
Yeah. He said that he was in pain, but after rehab, he had made it very clear to me that he knew that he should not be taking opioids again.
And what were you told when you arrived at the hospital on New Year's?
That was one of the worst days of my life. The following morning, I got a call that no parent ever wants to receive, that my baby was in trouble and I needed to get to the hospital right away. When arriving at the hospital, the doctor told me that Sloan had passed away and he had overdosed.
Did you receive something in the mail on the next day?
Yes, Sloan was on my insurance, and so I received all of his invoices. And the next day, on January 2nd, I received his invoices for December and saw that he had in fact gone back to Dr. Ari Davis, and that Dr. Ari Davis had prescribed him another round of vitamin.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, witness. One of them.
Good morning, Miss Rory. My name is Natalia Carey. First off, I would like to say I'm very sorry about the death of your son. I recently lost my grandmother September 8th, so I do know how it feels to lose someone very close to you.
I'm sorry for your loss as well.
Thank you. Miss Rory, you are an involved parent, that's safe to say, correct?
Yes, ma'am, I was involved in the high school booster club. I tried to go to as many games as possible. I was very involved.
You said in your testimony within your direct examination that you were referred to Dr. Davis by a trainer, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
When you first went to Dr. Davis, it's safe to assume that you weren't totally satisfied with his care with your son?
I did think it was quick, yes.
So were you totally satisfied, yes or no?
I was not totally satisfied.
You were extremely concerned when you took Sloan to rehab, correct?
Oh, I was 100%. No mother should have to take their child to rehab. It was a heartbreaking experience.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Thomas, you filled out a patient history form at Dr. Davis's office for Sloan, correct?
I did.
You wouldn't exclude any information to the doctor if that were means to get better care in terms of more medication or more time because you wanted to get your son on the court, correct?
As I stated earlier, I did withhold information, but I did it for the sake of my son. I thought I was doing what was best for him as a parent.
Okay. But you did exclude the information, the pertinent information.
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
You did, like you just said, excluded the information from the packet, correct?
As stated earlier, yes, I did. I wanted to protect my son.
Is it safe to assume when Sloan had gotten the first dosage of Vicodin from Dr. Davis, you skimmed through the warnings and precautions, correct?
I did. Those were a hard couple of days. My son needed care. I was going through a lot, so I did just skim over it.
Okay. You also stated previously in your testimony that it is, you get invoices at the end of each month when Sloan he, forgoes medical care, such as appointments, prescriptions, correct?
Sometimes at the end of the month, at the beginning of the month, the date really varies, but yes, I do get invoices.
Do you get them at the end of each month?
Or at the beginning of the next month. Like the days, I would have to have the records in front of me to know the specific days that I get the invoices, but I do get invoices, yes.
Ms. Thomas, you remember giving an affidavit, a statement, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness.
Allow.
Your Honor, I think she's gonna ask the next question, and she'll have to approach the witness later.
You said you didn't tell anyone at UU about Sloan's stint in rehab because you didn't want to hurt his chances of keeping his scholarship and other opportunities, correct?
I didn't tell him because he's an adult and that was his decision to make, not mine.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness.
Sure.
Which parts? Just the one sentence or the entire line?
This right here. Go here. Page 25. Ms. Roy, I want to have you read line 129 and to 131. 131 is how
Read it to yourself.
To myself.
In your statement, you said that you never told anyone at UU about Sloan's rehab because you figured Sloan should decide who to share the information with. You continue to say, and I didn't want to do anything that might cause him to lose his basketball scholarship. Were you, yes or no, you currently just told me that you didn't share the information because of the fact that you didn't, he was an adult and you felt like he should, correct? That's what you just
Above
said.
all, I did not share it because it was not my information to discuss. I was not attending university. I did not know his friends. I was not personally involved with this. I knew his friends, but it wasn't my position to tell them. It wasn't my position to tell his coaches he was an adult.
I want to refocus you a little bit. You said just now that you did not tell anyone because he was an adult, but you stated—
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
That's, that ground is denied. You know, the other grounds.
Objection, leading question.
That's definitely denied.
You stated in your own affidavit, your own words, that you did not tell anyone at UU about his rehab stint and about his addiction because of the fact that you were trying to protect his scholarships and his opportunities. Is that correct?
That was part of the reason, yes, but he is also an adult and I wanted to do that. I didn't want to tell his business to people if that's not what he wanted.
But a part of the reason was because of you were trying to protect his opportunities. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
You didn't speak to Dr. Davis personally about Sloan's rehab stint, yes or no?
I attempted to call his office multiple times and never received an answer, so no, I did not speak to him.
You did not know if Dr. Davis received your call, correct?
I never received word back. I left a message. I assume that he will.
You did not get confirmation that Dr. Davis received your call, correct?
I did not.
You were tempted to tell Sloan the truth, but you didn't want to impact him negatively in any aspect, is that correct?
Correct.
No further questions.
Can you read that?
Miss Thomas, you did skim the prescription bottle, correct?
What's the prescription bottle?
You skimmed the cautions, excuse me.
Okay.
Were you busy at that time and caring for your son?
Yes, he had just been injured. I had a lot on my plate. I was caring for him. If any of you guys have ever cared for a sick child or a sick or injured child, you know they need all the attention they can get.
So you would say it was a hard job and you were the only one who could care for him?
Oh, it was a hard time. Yeah. I was a single parent, so it was all on me.
And about telling information, Sloan was an adult, and you agree that it was his disclosure to disclose information.
Yes, I do agree.
Even though you are the mother, it is not your responsibility to disclose.
When I was in university, my parents didn't disclose to my professors when I was sick or anything. I figured that when you're in university and an adult, it's what you choose to disclose to the people you associate with at your university. That is your decision. It's not my decision to make for him. He was an adult and at university.
And so the basketball, when you mentioned in your affidavit, was just a part of that. It was just a simple factor included.
Yes, ma'am.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Anything else? Thank you, ma'am. Come down. Call you next witness. You can give that to me. Thank you.
Plaintiff's side would like to call Dallas Sanchez to the stand, please.
Raise your right hand. You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. See, you're holding the steps. Hi, you can see.
Mr. Sanchez, where did you attend college?
Utopia University.
And why did you choose to attend Utopia University?
I went on a track scholarship.
Once again, Mr. Sanchez, can speak up.
I got you.
What was your relationship with Sloan Thomas?
But that was my best friend.
And do you recall how you met Sloan?
Yeah, I met him. We actually stayed in the same housing on campus, but I met him at an ice cream social. It was an event that the school had.
Could you describe Sloan Thomas as a person?
Yeah, he was a cool guy. He was real popular, outgoing at the time. He wasn't conceited. He was pretty straight and narrow. He was really driven, focused on his career. A lot of people were drawn to that.
Mr. Sanchez, could you describe Sloan Thomas's relationship with student life?
As far as like students on campus?
Students on campus, any sort of organizations he might have been involved in?
Oh, they loved him. Well, his major was outdoor leadership, so I know he had a good touch with people. I think people really enjoyed the type of person he was and how he was more genuine than anything.
Mr. Sanchez, do you remember when you first saw Sloan taking Vicodin HP?
Yeah, we was at a lacrosse game the first time I saw him taking it. I believe it was April. I can't remember the exact date. I know it was in April.
Okay. Do you recall how Sloan said he came into possession of the Vicodin HP?
Yeah, he told me Dr. Davis prescribed it to him.
Did the timeline of Sloan taking the Vicodin surprise or bewilder you based on his shoulder injury that occurred in March?
A little bit, because he was still taking it later on, even after his surgery.
Did Sloan change whilst taking the Vicodin HP, in your opinion?
Yeah, he did. He wasn't his cheery self. He was a little moody, a little more agitated at times.
Have you been involved with drugs or experienced dealing with anybody that has used drugs?
I haven't myself, but my sister, she also was taking Vicodin for a surgery that she had recently. Not recently, but over time.
And do you recall what occurred on June 2nd, 2017?
Yeah, I was with Sloan at his house. We were playing Madden. We were just chilling.
Okay. And did you notice anything in the room?
Yeah, it was a Vicodin bottle. It had only a little bit of pills left.
Do you remember discussing with him how long it might have been since he had last seen Dr. Davis?
He told me Dr. Davis was a very hard man to get in contact with. And we actually got, I don't want to say we got into it, but he got pretty heated because he told me that he was in so much pain and he couldn't get in contact with Dr. Davis for anything, and he tried and tried. He actually called right in front of me, and he got sent right to voicemail, and obviously the mailbox was full, so he couldn't leave a message.
Do you recall an altercation that he might have had with Rory Thomas?
Yeah, that was a couple days later. I was back at his house. She came in and grabbed him, and I kind of overheard from the other room that he told her those pills were prescription, and I didn't want to stick around for any of that, so I left in like the middle of the argument.
And after that altercation, when do you think the next time you saw Sloan was?
I tried to get in contact with him, but we didn't speak for the rest of the summer. I don't know if he was upset at me, but I saw him around on campus, and I want to say we started speaking again around November, something like that.
Okay. And did Sloan mention his stint at the rehab facility to you at all?
Yeah, he told me about it.
Did that seem to stress Sloan out at all? Do you think he was more stressed as a person after the stint at the rehab?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. And do you recall what occurred on New Year's Eve?
Yeah, we went to a party. It was a costume party. I know he was trying to buy some Vicodin from somebody because he was in so much pain. And I believe that is the night that he overdosed.
At the party, did Sloan ever show you any Vicodin HB, if you do recall?
Yeah, I recall. It was a couple hours in the party. He flashed me a bag of pills. I assumed it was the Vicodin, and that was the last time I saw him.
And Mr. Sanchez, in your opinion, who's at fault for Sloan Thomas's overdose and opioid addiction?
Objection, argumentative.
Is it? Is it argumentative? I don't think so.
Objection, what?
Argumentative?
I don't think that's argumentative.
Try again.
You try, but you aren't gonna find it. It's
Hey,
not.
Alice, are you an expert witness?
I'm just a friend.
Thank you. very
Objection,
much.
improper expert opinion. Correct? No?
Improper opinion.
Improper opinion.
All want to be heard?
Nothing further.
All right, your witness?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Sanchez, did you see Sloan Thomas with alcohol at the New Year's Eve party?
Maybe a beer or two.
A beer or two? May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize these two documents in front of you, Mr. Sanchez?
Yes, I do.
Could you explain to me what they are, please?
One of them is my deposition, and the other is a statement from my affidavit.
On October 8th, 2019, you were deposed and you mentioned that you didn't see alcohol in Sloan's hand, correct?
Correct.
In your affidavit, you said that you did see Sloan with a few beers in your affidavit. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
So in which instance, Mr. Sanchez, are you telling us the truth?
In my affidavit.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Could you identify what's on this piece of paper for me, Mr. Sanchez?
These are text messages from me and Sloan.
And how can you verify that it's your telephone?
Because I have it saved as Sloan Tom, to short for Thomas.
Is your name in the upper right-hand corner of the text messages?
Yeah, it is.
In the context of these texts, what did you mean by, or what did Sloan mean by thanking you for the GOT option at NYE?
He was thanking me for the Game of Thrones option, which was the person who would be selling Vicodin, and the New Year's Eve is the New Year's Eve party. The NYE is the New Year's Eve party that we were going to.
That doesn't sound very 100% official by my client. Are you 100% certain that that medication is Vicodin HP at the appropriate dosages?
Can you rephrase the question?
Okay. Are you sure that you saw Vicodin? Can you be 100% certain that you saw Vicodin HP at the proper dosages for Sloan Thomas
When?
at the New Year's Eve party?
I can't be sure. You flashed me a bag of pills. I assumed it was Vicodin.
What does it mean to have a best friend, Mr. Sanchez?
What does it mean to have a best friend? It can mean a lot of things. It depends on which way you're asking.
Do you look out for your best friend's best interests, Mr. Sanchez?
Yes. I always try to.
So you thought giving more pills to your best friend that just got out of a 60-day stint in rehab was a good idea?
I didn't give him the pills.
But giving him the information to get the pills was a good idea?
I thought I saw my best friend in excruciating pain every day. I thought I saw him very upset and depressed. And I thought I saw a guy who was eager to get back out on court. So I did think that the pills would help him because he couldn't get in contact with his doctor.
And you have not, to confirm, you have never taken Vicodin yourself, Mr. Sanchez?
No, I have not.
But you do know about the bad side effects?
Yes, I do.
Because of your sister?
Yes.
So, knowing your sister's poor experience with Vicodin and having these poor experiences, why would you give them to your best friend, knowing that all of these things will be coming out?
Well, I knew he wasn't that type of person. He was never that type of person. He was always straight and narrow. He never really experienced with drugs before any of his injuries. So I didn't think that the drugs would be that powerful and take over his character.
What type of person is that, Mr. Sanchez?
Who? Sloan?
You had mentioned a certain type of person. What certain type of person were you referencing?
Oh, how Sloan was before he got prescribed Vicodin. He was very straight and narrow.
But after prescribed Vicodin, he was no longer straight and narrow?
No, he was very off. He was very moody. He was very much depressed, I want to say. He just wasn't the same.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Sanchez, would you consider Sloan your close friend?
Yes.
Would you say Sloan was a good friend to you?
Yes.
And would you say Sloan was cautious about doing anything after his stint in rehab?
Very cautious.
Okay, nothing further, Your Honor.
Good, thanks for coming down.
Your Honor, plaintiff would like to call Dr. Blake Spaller to the stand.
Raise your right hand. You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness.
Well, let's find out who she is first.
Could you state your name for the court?
My name is Dr. Blake Spaller.
Last name.
Spaller.
S.P.
Aller.
And what is your occupation, Dr. Spaller?
I am the Chief of Sports Medicine and a distinguished professor of orthopedic surgery at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia.
And how long have you been in the sports medicine field?
Around 22 years now, give or take 5 years if you count my residency.
Have you ever done any research on opioids?
Multiple times. I've done about 12 research studies at this point.
Have you done research on the current opioid epidemic?
I have. I'm doing one for the CDC right now. They are providing me funding for my research.
How many of these research projects would you say have been published?
All of them.
Have you ever worked with any patients that have developed an opioid addiction?
I have.
How many times have you testified as an expert witness?
10, half for the defense.
Are you being compensated to testify today?
No, nor have I ever been.
Your Honor, we'd like to establish Dr. Spaller as an expert witness in sports medicine and opioids.
Any objection? I guess she's tendering her expert witness.
No objections, Your Honor.
Now, you stated that you weren't being compensated.
The court will allow her to testify as an expert witness and to render opinion in the area of sports medicine
And opioids.
and opioids without objection from the defendant.
You had stated before that you are not being compensated to testify today. Would you mind just telling us what enticed you to testify today then?
My nephew, actually, he developed an opioid dependency and addiction when he was young, and eventually that turned into a heroin addiction, which he eventually overdosed and died from. So I feel that it is in both my best interest and in the best interest of the sports world, as well as those being treated as patients, for me to do whatever I can to help prevent more opioid addiction.
When a patient comes into your office, what is your procedure for obtaining their medical history?
So when a patient comes into my office, they'll initially be checked in by my receptionist, and they will be handed a patient history evaluation sheet, which they will fill out while they are waiting in my waiting area. And then once they are called back into a patient room, my nurse will go over it with them initially, and then I actually have 2 different procedures for whether it's a minor or an adult. If it's an adult, I just go over it with them a 3rd time personally, and then if it's a minor, I actually ask the minor to step out of the room while I go over it with the guardian or legal adult, just to make sure that everything is completely clear and nothing is being hidden from the child.
How important would you say it is to ensure the completion and accuracy of this information?
Entirely. It's almost not possible to prescribe an over-the-counter medication without having a complete history, because you don't know what kind of reaction they might have or what runs in their families.
So you had stated that you asked them verbally about their medical history just to ensure that that information is correct. Do you ever observe patient behavior that indicates false information or incompletion?
Yes, sometimes if patient history isn't completely filled out accurately,
the patient might act kind of standoffish or aggressive when asked questions about their family history.
What patients would you say are at a higher risk of developing an opioid addiction?
Ones with history of substance abuse or mental illness in their families.
Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor? Dr. Scholar, do you recognize this form?
Yes, it's a patient history form. It's that of Sloan Thomas.
Could you tell me how you recognize this form?
For the record, this is in Mark Exhibit 581.
I received his records from Dr. Aria Davis's office.
Has this form appeared to have changed at all since you reviewed it?
Not at all.
Will this help you in your testimony today?
Yes.
Is there anything on this form that would strike you as concerning when it comes to a patient's medical history?
Do you want to offer it into evidence?
Yes, I will.
Objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right. Plaintiff's Exhibit 581 is admitted without objection.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Is there anything on this form that would strike you as concerning when it comes to patient's medical history?
He lists that he has anxiety. Typically that goes hand in hand with depression, so I'd be concerned about that.
Why would that be concerning to you?
Opioids can enhance anxiety and depression, as well as people with anxiety and depression are more susceptible to addiction.
So you would say that you would help to try to find a different route of care for those who have a mental illness such as anxiety or depression?
Yes, or at the very least have them on a lesser dosage to begin with.
Now, how would you determine whether a patient is to receive a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug versus an opioid?
Well, NSAIDs should be used initially, in my belief and in my practice. We always use NSAIDs to begin with, unless NSAIDs are not helping with the swelling and the pain. So typically I will prescribe NSAIDs to begin with, and then in a follow-up exam we will look and see if the swelling has gone down, if the pain levels have gone down, and then we might reconsider if we need to up the medication.
If a patient is prescribed opioids, how do you determine the dosage that a patient is to receive?
Height and weight. It's very clear how metabolism works, and medications are metabolized based on the height and weight.
Do you know of any regulations that maximize a dosage that a physician can prescribe to a patient?
It depends on what year you're referencing. There has been a recent change in the laws. It used to be 30 days. It's now 14 days post-surgery.
So, as of 2017, there was that duration where there was a big debate over opioids in North Carolina. Do you know the days that were up for debate that a doctor should prescribe opioids to a patient?
It was 5 to 7 days pre-surgery and up to 14 days post-surgery.
Now, after this debate went through legislation, do you know any regulations by North Carolina that regulate the duration of an opioid prescription?
Objection. Beyond the scope, she's supposed to only be testifying towards sports medicine and only the opioids that you have dealt with before, not the duration of time and legislation.
What do y'all say to that?
She's an expert in opioids, not just opioids. It's opioids in general.
Counsel's question was directing towards this. Was she aware of the legislation that was passed? That is beyond her scope.
If she's a physician, then she should know the legislation that was passed for opioids.
Customary to stand with the address of the board. Objection overruled. Answer the question.
Could you repeat the question, please?
After this debate, do you know of any legislation that regulates the duration of a opioid prescription in North Carolina.
Yes, as I stated a moment before, in 2017, the law changed, so it was 5 to 7 days pre-surgery and 14 days post-surgery.
So, as we had talked about before, you're pretty familiar with Sloan Thomas medical records. Is that fair to say?
I am.
Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor? Do you notice this document?
I do. It is Sloan Thomas's medical report from his autopsy.
Now, has it changed any since you last reviewed it?
It has not.
Now, will it help you in your testimony today?
It will.
Your Honor, I'd like to offer this into evidence as Exhibit 3.
It says 6.
In our book, it's Exhibit 6, but this is our third exhibit.
They tagged it by the way they were.
Yeah, we tagged it by the way we introduced it, but in the book it's
Where's
different.
5A? Where'd you tag it?
Exhibit 2.
Which was
Sorry.
on this.
Report. I need the same number. All right, so the 5A1 is now Exhibit 2.
Yes.
And this is Exhibit 3.
Yes. Could you just state what the cause of death that autopsy says?
Vicodin overdose.
Could you just tell us what was Sloan's blood alcohol content?
It was 0.07.
Now, would you believe that that amount of alcohol would have a negative effect with his Vicodin prescription?
Typically, you're not supposed to drink alcohol at all when you're taking Vicodin, but as the alcohol in his blood was less than the legal limit, he would still be allowed to drive. So I would believe that this would only cause drowsiness.
However, in your opinion, what ultimately causes a Vicodin overdose?
Taking too much Vicodin.
So it wouldn't be that the alcohol reacted with the Vicodin negatively?
Not in my belief with this amount of blood alcohol content.
Now, lastly, in your professional opinion, do you think that Dr. Davis's standard of care provided to Sloan Thomas was appropriate?
Objection, Your Honor, speculative. I'm going to stop her before she gets ahead. They can move on.
How would you have
Rephrase that.
How would you have treated Sloan Thomas?
I would have originally prescribed him NSAIDs, especially when in that last injury that I reviewed in his case in December of 2017, he only had maybe a bruise and some strained ligaments. There was nothing severe there.
So would you say that Sloan Thomas was overprescribed opioids in this case?
Absolutely.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Dr. Spaulding, you are testifying in this case to the care provided by Sloan Thomas, correct?
I am.
Are you currently the chief of sports medicine at Emory University?
I am.
And you previously worked at UTOB University Sports Medicine Center for 6 years.
I did.
Are there more safety precautions for high-risk patients while prescribing opioids?
I typically just go with not prescribing them as much as I can.
But have you prescribed opioids before?
I have.
Are there benefits to their purpose for the creation?
Absolutely, with a limited amount of time.
So based on you evaluated the whole case, or the whole information even of Dr. Davis on Sloan, based on your assessment of Sloan Thomas's treatment, was the questionnaire filled out before appointments?
It was, as far as the documents I received from his office.
And so, did you see anything in the family history that would trigger anything showing like a possible making Sloan Thomas a high-risk patient?
Again, the anxiety.
Is that just the anxiety?
If you don't mind, I'm going to look again. There's a history of high blood pressure, but that would just make me reevaluate the dosage amount that I gave him.
But there's nothing on there to suggest that so other than anxiety, which you did mention earlier in your previous testimony that mental illness and familial history of addiction could make someone more high risk to become addicted.
Yes.
Do you see family history of addiction listed under family history?
I do not, but that does not negate that he reported himself to have anxiety.
Is it on the sheet though? Is addiction under family history on the sheet?
It is not.
As a physician supposed to prescribe opioids, was Dr. Davis aware of Sloan Thomas's problem with addiction?
I can't answer for that. The defense refused to allow me to interview Dr. Aria Davis, so I can't answer that question.
Okay, but under the law of HIPAA, are counselors supposed to be able to share information with like outside personnel?
They are, because I have a HIPAA qualification, so he is allowed to speak to me.
The counselor or Sloan?
Dr. Aria Davis
So,
and Sloan.
were you aware that Sloan Thomas went to rehab at Four Seasons Recovery Center?
I was.
Were you aware that he did not sign a waiver release form to allow the counselor to go and inform Dr. Davis of his stay at Four Seasons?
I was not.
Okay. Can a physician determine a high-risk patient without accurate familial history?
Repeat that.
Can a physician determine a high-risk patient without accurate familial history?
Yes, because of the things that he did report. He reported himself to have anxiety, which in itself makes him a more high-risk patient than someone without anxiety or a self-diagnosed mental illness.
All right. Your Honor, permission to approach the witness. You go ahead and read the highlighted portion of 171 and 172. So, Dr. Davis had no information suggesting that Sloan was a high-risk patient.
I believe that at the time that my affidavit was written, yes.
Objection, Your Honor. May we see what you are asking her about?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just a highlighted one. At any point in the treatment of Sloan Thomas, did Dr. Davis ever prescribe an Vicodin HP to exceed the 90 MME danger threshold when taken properly?
Do not believe so. I would have to review the records.
And so we established you as an expert. You would consider yourself an expert also in the field of opioids?
Yes.
So you know what an opioid is and what an opioid is not?
Yes.
Okay, so your nephew passed away from what?
A heroin overdose.
Is heroin an opioid?
It's an opioid affiliate, yes.
Okay, well, I'd like to reference your deposition.
My deposition clearly states that my nephew had a opioid addiction and that it led to a heroin overdose.
Your Honor, if you'd like to approach the witness, maybe she needs to review the deposition.
Permission to approach the witness.
And maybe he would like her to read out loud what she stated when she was asked about that in her deposition.
Okay, that's a highlighted one right there.
What's this deposition going to? It's a different deposition.
Can you read this out loud for the highlighted question and answer?
Are you going to introduce that in the evidence?
Am I allowed to across?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor, I would like to.
You are allowed to on their evidence. There are, however, consequences for doing that.
Which are?
That constitutes putting on evidence.
Okay, no, I just like to read it aloud. I don't want to enter that in the check.
She can't read it aloud unless you put it in there.
Okay, are you aware of what that said? Okay, then screw it, I'll put it in there. Please read it aloud.
Okay, would you like to read the question?
Why don't you have her identify it first?
Oh, do you recognize this document?
I do recognize the questions on the document.
Is this your deposition we did previously with you?
Yes.
Will you please read the highlights?
Hold on. Marked it?
No.
No, sir.
Mark it as a defense exhibit.
All right, then I don't want to go and put it in evidence.
Yeah, you do. And you need to mark.
And then we can, yeah, it's my
Okay.
So mark it, and then I'll.
What's the number?
This is number 1.
Good check. This is exhibit number 1.
Okay.
No.
Can't decide. Live without objection. That's just put on evidence.
Will you please read the highlights question and answer?
The question was, do you find this opioid epidemic in your relation with your nephew to have affected you personally? And I said no, because he died from a heroin overdose.
So you did agree that you were an expert when you were in this one segment?
Next question.
So you said your nephew. So the question was, do you find this opioid epidemic in your relation with your nephew to affect you personally? You said he was. He first became addicted to prescription painkillers, right?
Yes, he became addicted to opioids.
Okay. And so we established that heroin is a form of opiate.
It is an affiliate, yes.
Okay. So did your nephew die of an opioid overdose then?
Of an opioid affiliate overdose, yes.
Is that so? It's affiliate. Is it technically an opiate still?
Technically.
Okay. So did your nephew die of an opioid overdose?
Yes, but this does not change my answer for my deposition. It does not affect me personally.
That was my question. What is the standard of care in Utopia required by the medical board?
I have to review that for Utopia. I've been in Atlanta, Georgia for quite some time now.
But you did work at Utopia University for 6 years.
I did,
Were you once familiar with the standard of care?
at one point.
So you're an expert viewing a case outside your state. You didn't review the standard of care.
I have not recently,
So
no.
can you not provide me a definition of the standard of care?
Not at this current time. Would you?
Could you have previously before while analyzing this case?
I could have, yes, if you had asked me during the deposition.
And so,
Objection compound?
so as an expert, and you're testifying in a case in a separate place, and you can't tell me what the standard of care is?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Anything else on the direct?
No, Your Honor.
Doctor, you come down. I don't know what those are.
One is the deposition, one is the autopsy report, and one is Sloan Thomas's medical report.
Everybody next one.
Your Honor, I think at this point in time, the plaintiffs have called the witness. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, we'll take a break, we're gonna roll on.
Take 5 minutes.
Right, take 5 minutes.
That's a mistake.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Arya Davis.
Dr. Davis, where are you currently employed?
I'm currently employed at Utopia University.
And what is your educational background?
I did my undergraduate at UNC Chapel Hill. I got my master's at Duke University, and I also got my medical degree at the Brody School of Medicine at DC.
And how long have you been practicing?
I've been practicing for 10 years.
Have you completed any academic publications while at the university?
Yes, I've done 3 publications, one on Vicodin HP, the other one on opioid abuse, and one on drug addiction.
How many patients would you treat in a typical 12-month period at your clinic?
Around 300 to 450.
Are you able to prescribe medication as an aid to your recovery, or to the recovery process?
Yes.
Could you please describe your relationship with plaintiff's son, Sloan Davis? Thomas, excuse me.
He was a great student. He was outstanding. I could say that we were pretty close. He was a very ambitious basketball player. Whenever he would come see me, that's basically all we would talk about besides his pain.
In your own words, could you please describe the events of February 6th, 2013?
That was the first time I met Sloan. He came to me with a injured right ankle, told me that it was hurting. I gave him a 7-day dosage of Vicodin HP. And then after that, he told me it was a 100% recovery.
Were there any forms needed out to fill, or were there any forms needed to be filled out prior to Sloan receiving care?
Yes, a client information sheet.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
They're both of the exhibit 3. I both exhibit 3.
Thank you.
Little mix up the label, Your Honor. Do you recognize these documents in front of you, Mr.?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, both of the ones that I have say Appendix Exhibit 3.
Correct, Your Honor.
They're 2 different documents.
They are labeled differently, Your Honor. Brought in as the same piece of evidence in our workbook.
I think what Your Honor is saying is two different documents, and you can't introduce them as one document, you have to introduce them one at a time. They're 2 separate numbers. So one could be Fence Exhibit 2, and one could be Fence Exhibit 5, or 6. You know, do one.
That was the question I was trying to ask you yesterday about,
I have,
So let's just do it this way. I'm going to take it this way.
Okay.
And then we're going to just do it this way.
Okay. All right, sounds good, buddy.
We all just want to get out of here. We all just want to get out of here.
They take them all back, that's straight. Now, let's see what they gave you. It's the same document, 2 different numbers. You gave me 3, you gave them 1.
This is already in there.
we both meant to be exhibit 3, but since we have brought in evidence from the cross, which we normally would not do,
I have a copy of the exact same thing he has, and you went to his
It's an
one.
objection because it's
Mine
already
3.
in evidence.
everything 1, 2, and 3, but since we had.
Because I gave it to Dr. Spaulding.
Labeled as objection.
Did you? Yes. This, excuse me, this document is already in evidence.
So you could refer to plaintiff, but we just don't have a
It's
moment.
plaintiff's
That's
exhibit,
fine.
it's plaintiff's exhibit 2.
Okay.
Right, but technically don't I need to bring?
No, it's already been introduced to evidence, so because it's
If
already.
you want to
been
introduce it again, it's Wendy's 3, that's fine.
But you don't have to, it's already been evidence, so
Do
we
that.
can just.
Let's roll on. What's the other exhibit? Present. You got it?
That's the doctor's note. To
You have a copy of that?
So this is what we put
Right, you
for
got
us.
this 3 also.
This one doesn't need this.
Make
Yeah,
this
we already
2,
did this.
we don't have a 2 yet.
All right, here you go.
So you've not introduced any of them. Well, he introduced one on their end.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
So could you identify for the court what this document is, please?
This is a.
Tell us the number first.
Exhibit 3.
Can you identify defendant's exhibit number 3?
Yes, this.
How can you identify it?
Because on the back of the sheet, it has my signature.
Tell us what it is.
This is the Utopia University medical client information sheet.
You object to introducing defense exhibit number 3?
No objections, Your Honor.
Did without objection. Now let's try it again with 2. You do it this time. Yeah, give him 2 first. You've already given me a copy of it. So that's
Yes, that's why. What happened? This is why. Plaintiff, excuse me guys, which copies do you guys have? Since this is.
Give me your copy. Thank you.
You guys already have it.
Sorry.
Okay, so you just want us to refer to it out the book?
Introduce it. Let's try to introduce it.
Introduce
Right here.
exhibit 2, Your Honor.
I got it. You can go
Which one is it?
ahead. Ending number 2.
And number 2.
Now ask the question.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you recognize what this document is in front of you?
Yes.
And what is it?
This is the patient result sheet.
Let's see it. Okay. See? What is a patient resolve sheet?
Patient resolve sheet is another term I use for a doctor's note.
Could you tell me from the information provided on this worksheet what Sloan's medical history looks like?
Would this
From
document, would this
the
document,
exhibit-
hold on. Would this document aid you in your testimony?
Yes.
Fair and accurate representation of the notes that you took.
Yes.
Now, you'd like to offer it into evidence? Would you like to offer it into evidence?
We would like to offer into evidence as exhibit 2.
We all object. You all listening to me?
Yes, no objections, Your Honor.
Now it's objected, now it's admitted without objection. Okay, you may proceed.
Could you please describe the nature of Sloan Thomas's injury on February 6, 2013, please?
He says that Sloan was present for initial evaluation of ankle pain, which began after an injury due to a high school basketball game on February 5th, 2013. Ankle pain is acute in nature. By report, swelling is increased over the last 20 hours. Pain does not improve and is a 10 on a 10-point scale.
Is this typical of an observation you've had of treating other athletes with such an injury?
Yes.
So your patient, Sloan, wasn't any different than any other athlete you've treated with this injury?
No, not at all.
What is your regular course of treatment for a patient with such an injury?
Usually, I would try to see their movement first. I would ask them about their pain. I would also ask about family history, which is why I also use the client information sheet. I usually ask twice, once for the first time I see a patient, because sometimes they might forget. And then once that's all said and done, I go ahead and prescribe pain medication as needed.
Was the pain medication dosage that you prescribed Sloan the typical dosage that you would provide to other athletes with such an injury?
Yes.
Is it consistent with the state guidelines on prescribing opioids?
Yes.
Is it consistent with the procedure prescribed by the new and current guidelines?
Yes. This also plays hand in hand with the STOP Act, which was just released in 2018, where it says that due to my discretion of a patient's pain, I can prescribe pain medication which I see fit.
Do you ever hand out additional information pamphlets on the medication you prescribe?
Legally, I do not have to, but morally, I choose to. So my patients know what kind of medication that I'm using and what the side effects and issues can be when it comes to it.
Permission to approach, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
We have 2 copies.
This is one of these.
You recognize this document?
Yes.
And what is this document, Doctor?
This is my.
Hold on. For the record, this is the fifth, this is a number 4. Can you tell us what it is?
This is the PDR form that I use to give the patients describing what Vicodin is, the side effects, and what to do and what not to do when they use it.
Do the patients ever need to verify that they've read the product warnings and information before receiving medication?
Yes, because usually after I give them the sheet, I also give them a legal document where they sign saying that they've read the sheet and they fully understand it.
Could you please read aloud the highlighted portion indicated on the sheet in front of you?
You want to offer it into evidence.
I want her to talk about it and then offer it into evidence. I'm not going to do it the other way.
You can tell you what it is, but you cannot read from it if it's not evidence.
The defense would like to offer this as exhibit 4.
What do y'all say about it? 4.
No objections, Your Honor.
4 is admitted without objection.
The paper says, while taking Vicodin, do not drink alcohol or use prescription or over-the-counter medicines that contain alcohol. Using products containing alcohol during treatment with Vicodin may cause you to overdose and die.
Could you please explain the interaction you had with Sloan Thomas on March 17th, 2017?
March 17th, that was when Sloan and Rory came into my office. Sloan was playing a pickup game at home. He had a left shoulder rotary cuff. So what I did was I viewed the range of motion, and I could clearly tell he was in extreme pain, and he even told me himself. So what I did was I gave him a 30-day prescription of Vicodin HP, which weighs 180 pills, and everything seemed to be okay, and that was I said.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Could you identify the document in front of you?
Yes.
And what is it?
This is a patient information sheet for Sloan Rotary.
Can you verify that this is yours?
Yes, because my signature is on the bottom.
Could you read off the medical history portion for me, please?
This is the document.
Objection, Your Honor. This hasn't been entered into evidence yet, so I
It
can't
actually
read.
has. This is the one that I introduced for him earlier.
Oh, wait, actually, this is actually the updated medical history form, which has not been entered into evidence yet. This is updated that Sloan Thomas had verified.
Let's go to the book. The one that I have is Exhibit 3 that I introduced is Exhibit 5A1. The one that he's now labeled again as number 3 as the book Exhibit 5B1. You're saying that those are different sheets?
Correct, Your
Yes,
Honor.
Your
There
Honor.
is,
One is from 2013, one is from 2017, Your Honor.
We need a different number. You already got a 3. And back that. I got you up 4 so far.
So which exhibits does the defense not have yet?
I have exhibit number 1, which y'all introduced on the plaintiff's evidence. Exhibit number 2, which has a number of 5A2. I have exhibit number 3, which also has a number of 5A1. I have exhibit number 4, which has exhibit 2B. That one is 5, but you've got another 5.
This will have to be known as Defendant Exhibit 6.
Alright, so let's try it again.
From the beginning.
I'll show you what the mark that states is Defendant's Exhibit 6. Do you recognize it?
Yes.
Your turn.
Could you recognize this document for me, please?
Yes.
And what is it?
This is a client information sheet from 2017.
Will this aid you in your testimony today?
Yes.
Your Honor, with the permission, I would like to move to admit this as Defense Exhibit number 6.
Any objection?
No, Your
All
Honor.
right, submitted now. Thank you.
Could you please describe the family history section of this document, please?
For the family history, for grandparents it says high blood pressure, and for fathers it's high cholesterol. All other options are.
What was his level of pain that day?
He was in extreme pain, acute, really. It was slowly becoming chronic. What I mean by acute is that it was a high intensity pain in a certain area, and by chronic it was slowly going down towards chronic.
Could you please describe the events of December 1st, 2017, please?
December 1st, 2017, that was when I was notified that Sloan had overdosed and he was departed. was very tragic, heartbreaking for me, actually. If I would have known his family history, I would have totally prescribed medication to Sloan differently. And it's a real shame. Miss Thomas, I wanted to say that I am truly sorry.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Sure.
Do you recognize this document in front of you?
Yes.
And what is it?
It's talking about Sloan's rotary cuff.
Could you please describe the nature of the injury?
It says that Sloan's present for initial evaluation.
Your Honor, defense hasn't admitted this into evidence.
That's true.
Therefore, he can't read from it.
Objection sustained.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense would like to offer this as Defense Exhibit 7 into evidence.
What is it? Do you object to that?
I do not.
So you do object.
I do object to
We don't know
him
what it
reading
is.
from this without it being into evidence.
But you object to being put into evidence.
No, I do not.
Yes, you do.
Um,
Yes, you
Because we
do.
haven't
wait.
been given it.
Why do you object to it being put into evidence?
Do you know what he's testifying to? Has he identified it? Has he told you exactly what it is?
No foundation, Your Honor.
No foundation.
Okay, lack of foundation, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Do you know what this document is in front of you?
Yes.
Could you please describe in detail what this document is in front of you?
This is the doctor's note for Sloan's rotary cuff.
At this time, we would like to enter it.
Will it aid you in your testimony?
Yes.
Will it aid you in your testimony?
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the notes you took? Now, your turn.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense would like to offer this as Defense Exhibit number 7.
Objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
Submitted without objection.
Could you please describe the nature of the injury?
It was talking about Sloan's rotary cuff and his sprained ankle. It says that Sloan was present for initial evaluation of left shoulder pain, and that he presents pain on his right ankle. The pain was present for 1 day and it's acute in nature. Sloan has a history of a torn left rotary cuff injury, which has been repaired with surgery in March. And he claims that he had over-the-counter medication that did not help, and describes it as an 8 or 9 on the 10-point pain scale.
Okay, thank you. Now, did you ever receive any form of communique from Rory Thomas regarding your son's prescription refills between November 30th and December 31st?
No.
Did you ever receive a walk-in visit from Rory Thomas between November 30th and and December 31st, 2017?
No.
Were you aware Sloan Thomas had attended the Four Seasons Rehabilitation Center while he was under your care?
No.
Do you have an answering machine in your office, Dr. Davis?
Yes.
How often do you check that answering machine?
I usually have my assistants return calls, but due to my busy schedule during the time, it was kind of hard for me to answer my phone.
So you would have to rely on your assistants to let you know if Ms. Davis left you a message?
Yes.
Or, I'm sorry, Sloan's mother left you a message?
No further questions?
Okay, Cross.
Dr. Davis, Sloan Thomas was under your care from 2013 until the time he passed, is that correct?
Correct.
And that would include the time he was staying at the Four Seasons Rehabilitation Center, is that correct?
Correct.
Now in 2013, for his first visit, that was for a serious ankle injury, is that right?
Correct.
And for that ankle injury, you prescribed him a 7-day prescription of Vicodin HP, is that correct?
That's correct.
When you prescribed these drugs to Sloan, were you aware that they had over twice the amount of hydrocodone than any other brand of Vicodin?
I was aware, but at the time, I wanted to make sure that he had complete pain relief. That was my main goal, to make sure that he was satisfied.
Did Sloan fill out a medical history form at his first visit?
Yes.
Did you ask Sloan any oral questions about his medical history to ensure that the answers were correct?
I cannot remember this time.
And permission to approach the witness, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know what this document is, Dr. David?
Yes.
This is your affidavit, correct?
Correct.
And just to verify, your signature is on that affidavit, verifying that everything in this affidavit is true.
Correct.
So in your affidavit, you stated that you don't bother asking any of your patients any oral questions about their medical history because it seems to agitate patients. Is that correct? So therefore, you most likely did not ask Sloan any oral questions about his medical history. Is that fair to say?
Objection.
Overruled.
Here's,
Hearsay?
yeah.
Overruled.
Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say.
Would you say that you made a fair effort to update Sloan's medical history?
As frequent as I possibly
Now, referring to your affidavit once again, you stated that whenever patients call your office with any questions or to report a problem or update medical history, you make sure they're able to speak with a live person. Or if they are not, they are going to receive a phone call back. Is that correct?
Yes.
However, when Ms. Rory Thomas called your office, no one was there to answer and the mailbox was full, correct?
Could you please restate the question?
When Ms. Rory Thomas called your office, no one was there to answer and the mailbox was full, is that correct? So, would you say that your office does keep up with the voicemail box as well as you stated it does?
We do, but I believe at that time we were overflowing with patients, especially since the time that this was going on. It was also probably football and lacrosse season, if I can recall.
So, the next day, Miss Rory Thomas again called, and yet again there was no answer. Is that correct? So somebody did answer.
Yes.
Okay. Would you say that you think highly of yourself as a physician?
I think I'm a pretty decent physician.
Would you think highly of your ratings and your office's ratings?
Yes.
So would you say you would do anything to ensure that you
Objection,
have
Your
high
Honor.
ratings?
Let her finish her question.
Would you say that you would do anything to ensure your office has high ratings?
Don't answer the question. What's your objection?
Relevance?
Overruled. You can answer the question now.
So if you restate the question, please.
Would you say you would do anything to ensure patient satisfaction so that you receive high ratings from patients?
No, I think patient satisfaction is first and foremost more than ratings.
what would you say the biggest part of patient satisfaction would be?
Pain relief, making sure that they know what, how am I trying to put this? Basically trying to see if they are comfortable after everything is done and done, making sure that they are within their normal ways before they got into the accident.
So the next time that you had seen Sloan Thomas was in March of 2017, is that correct?
Correct.
And that was for his rotator cuff injury, right? Dr. Davis, that was for his rotator cuff injury, is that correct?
Yes, I was referring to my notes.
And ultimately, you performed surgery on Sloan's rotator cuff, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then you proceeded to prescribe him a 30-day prescription of 180 pills of Vicodin HP post-surgery, is that correct?
That's correct.
Sloan called you approximately 3 weeks later and asked for more painkillers, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you proceeded to prescribe them, knowing he had finished them over a week early, is that correct?
That is correct.
And you did so not just refilling it, but you did so over the phone, is that correct?
That's correct.
You then had follow-up appointments with Sloan scheduled for May 17th and June 19th of 2017, is that correct? And you stated that at his May appointment, he seemed a little moody and anxious and like he wasn't himself, is that correct? So, would you say those are signs of addiction?
I won't. But honestly, I think it was at the time the stress that probably was overcoming.
So you're acknowledging that Sloan may have presented signs to you that he was becoming addicted.
Objection, speculation. People can be moody or depressed without the use of drugs.
Overruled. May I ask the question?
So you're acknowledging that these symptoms could be a sign of addiction that you have noticed in Sloan Thomas?
Honestly, no, because I've had some moody patients come up to me before, but it never really occurred to me that someone was addicted.
But you would say that those symptoms are a sign of addiction.
They can.
And then Sloan missed his June appointment, is that right? Did you ever question why he missed his follow-up appointment?
No, I never really did. I tried to get in contact with him, but I couldn't really.
So someone did try to get in contact with him about why he missed this appointment?
Yeah, but I never really got much of an answer back.
And then the last time you saw Sloan was in 2017, December of 2017, is that correct?
Yes.
At that appointment, Sloan only presented with a muscular strain and bruising, is that correct?
Yes.
However, you deemed it appropriate to prescribe a 30-day prescription of Vicodin for a muscle strain and bruising?
That was because he said that there were scouts going to one of his most recent games. He really wanted to be at his A game. He wanted to make a good impression. So I really just wanted to help him.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You just wanted to help him. How long was that before he died? Less than a month. You through questioning now?
Yes, sir.
You're welcome.
To clarify, did you ever exceed the 90 MME daily maximum for prescribing the opiates?
No.
According to the STOP Act, legislation created in 2018 on January 1 states that you are able to, what does it state in regards to refilling prescriptions over the telephone?
It says that I can refill and prescribe at my discretion if it's due to a patient's pain and It was mainly for patient's pain. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry?
I was able to prescribe due towards the patient's pain and how they told me that they felt, so it was due to my own discretion.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, the doctor, you come down, 5 minutes, please.
Your Honor, the defense would like to call at this time Dorian Wilson, please.
Please be careful with some steps. Okay, let's see.
Good afternoon. Would you state your name for the record, please?
Dorian Wilson.
Please tell me about your credentials for being a rehab counselor, Ms. Dorian.
I am a licensed professional counselor and a jurist.
All right, ma'am, you're gonna have to speak up, I can barely hear you right here, another jurist can't hear you.
I'm a licensed professional counselor and director of rehabilitation therapy at the Recovery Center. I got my education at Eden University, got my bachelor's in psychology and my minor in biology, and went to get my master's in clinical mental health counseling.
Why did you become a counselor, Ms. Dorian?
While at Eden University, I saw many of my classmates become depressed and dependent on alcohol and drugs, and that inspired me to get my master's.
Tell me about how you care for your patients and keep up with their progress while they're in rehab.
So, during the first 6 days, we have intensive one-on-one sessions, and then it's weekly thereafter. We also have, what makes us unique is we have adventure therapy. And during
What kind of therapy?
adventure therapy.
Please try to speak up.
And during this, we, the physical challenges that our clients face help them bring out deep-set emotions, and it helps our staff to take them out, usually weekly.
It might help if the counsel talks to the jury, maybe they can hear her. Just face them and talk to them, so that'll make it easier for them to hear.
So weekly, our staff take our clients off-site and to be able to help bring out the deep-set emotions that they do through physical challenges. And our adventure therapy is extremely effective. Only 25% of our clients suffer a relapse within the first year of graduating the program, and 65% are able to successfully transition back to colleges and jobs and just society in general.
And how do you keep up with their progress?
Our staff provides us detailed client reports, so I'm able to read it. And
do you remember Sloan Thomas's client report?
I have notes that detail our sessions.
Would you need a copy of these notes to refresh your memory?
Yes, please.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness, please?
Yes, ma'am. Don't send the notes.
Miss Dorian, can you tell me what that document in front of you is?
This is my notes from our sessions this morning.
Has anything been adjusted or altered since the last time you've written them?
No.
Would these notes help you testify today?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to present Exhibit A and introduce it into evidence and publish it to the jury.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right.
So tell me about Sloan during rehab. How was he?
At first, on June 6th, his mom called and begged me to take him in. And usually we don't take clients on such short notice due to, but because a client had canceled earlier, we were able to. I first met with him the next day on June 7th. He was very unresponsive to the questions I would ask him, and he wouldn't even look at me until he broke out and said, "I'm not an addict, I just borrowed a couple of pills from a friend because my doctor wouldn't prescribe me more medication because of my pain." And after that, for the first 3 days, he was still unresponsive, but after the 4th day, he started to break through. He told me that he lied about his pain in order to gain more of a prescription, and he used more than was prescribed. He also told me that he felt pressure from his mother to excel and be on his A game and, in order to keep a scholarship.
At this moment, could you read that line that you said he stated to you about what he said about his mother?
On June 26th, Sloan said, "Sloan appears to be making progress and has opened up about the pressure he feels from his parent, Rory, regarding the college basketball team. Rory always emphasizes that I need to excel so I don't lose my scholarship, particularly when NBA scouts are watching. Sometimes I feel I want to forget about basketball, but I can't. It's what everyone expects from me."
What did you tell Sloan to do once he was discharged?
First, I told him that I encouraged him to attend a sober living transition extension program, but he said he could not due to basketball training.
Was there anything else that you told him he should do when he leaves rehab?
I encouraged him to sign a release form that would allow me to disclose to his physicians about him going to rehab, but he did not.
Was it just his physicians, or was it physicians and others?
Well, physicians and people that I would need to disclose to. So like his trainers.
Mm-hmm. And did you feel like that, him signing a waiver was the best thing he could do for himself, just once he was discharged from rehab?
I felt, okay, so I believe that abstinence is the key to be able to successfully recover, and I told him that he should stay away from all alcohol, all drugs, and anybody or any situation that may cause him to relapse.
Would you be surprised that if you found out today that Sloan had alcohol in his system when he died and he was drinking?
I think.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to approach the witness.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson, what is this document I have in front of you?
This is the medical examiner's office of Sloan's blood test results.
How do you know this is the medical examiner?
Because it's
Your Honor, at this time...
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation.
didn't already get introduced, Your Honor. Didn't the plaintiffs already introduce that evidence?
I thought so.
We did.
Yeah.
Right.
Number 3. Plaintiff's number 3.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to refer to plaintiff's exhibit number 3 and have Ms. Wilson look at the blood test results. Now, Ms. Wilson, you just told me that you instructed Sloan to stay away from all alcohol. So that would mean that any alcohol percentage was more than what you told him to stay away from,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
No further questions.
Witness.
Ms. Wilson, do you regularly check on your patients in rehab, personally meet them?
After their discharge, we keep up with by phone call.
I mean, while they're in rehab.
Yes, we have, usually, the first 6 days, we have intensive one-on-one sessions, and then it's weekly thereafter.
But do you personally meet with them?
Yes.
Is it normal for patients to be standoffish and not speak at first because of the new environment And speaking of protocol, is there a protocol for finding accountability partners for patients when they're done with the rehab center?
We encourage that they tell us, but they don't have to.
And Salone Thomas was admitted to the rehab facility you were currently employed at on June 6, 2017, correct?
Yes.
Can you describe his day-to-day routine at the rehab center?
Well, we had our sessions first, and when I saw him, he still looked restless, and I just didn't want him to be able to start venture therapy until those symptoms had passed, and then after those passed, I let him do the venture therapy.
Would you say that Salone made good progress while in the rehab center?
Yes.
And he was a pretty good kid at the rehab center, correct?
Yes.
Did he show leadership skills while at the rehabilitation center? Was Salone very involved at the rehab center after the first week when he got through all those symptoms?
Yes.
Did he show a positive outlook to the staff and other patients?
Yes.
And did he show stability and encouragement?
Yes.
Would you say overcoming addiction is a difficult process?
Yes.
Have you dealt with addiction before?
No.
Have you dealt with
Like
others?
personally?
No, others having addiction.
Yeah, 10 to 15% of our patients come in addicted to prescription medication.
So you would say you are familiar with having to treat them?
Yes.
Do you believe that by cutting a patient off completely will help them overcome addiction?
Can you rephrase?
That because in your affidavit you stated that you cut him off completely to help him overcome his addiction. Do you stand by that?
Completely
Meaning that he is cut off of all alcohol, off opioids and
Yes.
everything, instead of gradually processing.
Yes, I believe complete abstinence is the only way to ensure.
Even though you said that others.
Other facilities do, but personally, and I recommend that complete abstinence.
Would you say it's important for the patient to gradually take their time during the process and help them grow and learn?
Yes.
Would you say Salone did that?
You,
That he gradually learned how to overcome and he worked through the process?
violent, yes.
Yes.
Violent.
Would you say, do you believe that Salone showed other patients the confidence and passion to overcome addiction and be that support system to others?
Yes.
And signs of addiction when Salone came into rehab, did he still present the signs when leaving? That any signs of relapse would occur?
No.
In your deposition, you stated that when someone is unresponsive, it is not your legal duty, correct?
It is not my legal duty to go to their house and to see what they're doing, but I called them, and that's all I can do, call and email.
It says, why did the rehab facility not check on Salone when he was unresponsive? Either way.
I called him. That's all that I can do in my legal duty.
Okay, well, your answer was it was not our legal duty. Also, in your deposition, it said, how is your relationship with clients after they are discharged? You said that we do keep in contact with them for the first few months, correct?
Through calls, correct.
All right, no further questions, Your Honor.
Could you clarify the point of that you told Salone to get accountability partners, right? That was his job, correct?
Yes.
It was his job to get accountability partners,
Yes.
not yours, correct? Thank you. No further questions.
Good. Thank you. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense would like to call Ben Morrissey to the stand. Ben.
Morrissey is M-O-R-R-I-S-S as well.
Dr. Morrissey, please state your full name for the court.
Finn Morrissey.
What is your current place of employment?
I'm currently the team physician for the Utopia Guardians, which is the largest professional basketball team in the state.
What do you specialize in specifically?
So I specialize in this treatment of sports-related injuries.
Wait, you're the largest professional basketball team in the state?
Yes.
I thought Duke was the largest professional basketball team. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, please remember Judge Ammons is a PhD in season.
Hey, me too.
Hi, I got you off track. You may proceed.
What did you specialize in?
So I specialize in treating sports-related injuries and also the orthopedic procedures that athletes might have to undergo to treat these injuries.
Where did you go to college for undergrad?
I went to the University of Pennsylvania, where I graduated in 1996 with a BA in economics and a BS in biology.
Where did you attend your medical education?
University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and I did a fellowship at Duke University.
When did you begin working for Empower Pharmaceuticals?
In May of 2007, when I was approached with a job opportunity.
What products did Empower Pharmaceuticals specialize in?
Mostly pain relief medicines, and their biggest was Vicodin, which was made up 85% of what they sold.
So you worked at Empower Pharmaceuticals for 11 years, is that correct?
Yes.
Would you consider yourself well informed on the products and other things that involve Empower?
Very well informed, yes.
Your Honor, we'd like to qualify Dr. Finn Morrissey as an expert in sports medicine and opioids involved with Empower Pharmaceuticals.
Any objection?
No, sir.
Right, the court will allow him to testify as an expert in sports medicine and opioids without objection.
So, can you say again what products you specialized in?
Yes, so Empower, or using myself, Empower specialized in pain relief medications, especially opioids, and especially Vicodin was their main product.
What were the purpose of these products?
Long-term pain relief and management.
Were these products tested?
Yes, rigorously tested by the FDA, and they passed all their tests.
So doing your job, would you consider that these products are safe and they accomplish what their goal is?
Yes.
What are the 3 different formulations of Vicodin?
So there's Vicodin regular, which is 5 milligrams hydrocodone. There's Vicodin ES, which is 7.5 milligrams hydrocodone, and Vicodin HP, which is 10 milligrams hydrocodone.
Were these products well received by patients?
Yes, generally well received because these products help with long-term pain relief in all of these patients.
Were these products well received by physicians who prescribed them to patients?
Yes, because their patients were generally giving them a good reception.
Is that the goal as a medical professional?
Yes.
You want to help your patients?
Absolutely.
Are there certain things you're not supposed to do while taking Vicodin?
Yes, that would be drinking alcohol, taking other opioids, and other central nervous system depressants.
What are the risks while doing so?
These could be drowsiness and respiratory failure if taken incorrectly in large amounts.
So one more time, I'm going to reiterate. Are you supposed to drink alcohol while taking Vicodin?
Absolutely not.
Are there opioids stronger than Vicodin, specifically the hydrocodone in Vicodin?
As far as I know, only Oxycontin and morphine.
So there are more addictive things that could have been prescribed to Sloan Thomas?
Yes.
What were your responsibilities when working with Empower Pharmaceuticals?
So with Empower, I was a medical liaison, so I traveled to medical conferences, hospitals, and doctors' offices to explain to doctors the benefits of using Metroplex.
When did you first meet Dr. Arya Davis?
Early in 2008 at a medical conference.
So you're the representative that works with Dr. Davis directly. Why were you the representative?
So Empower believed that basically, since he was a very skeptical man for new treatment methods, he was mainly worried about the efficacy and the disadvantages and advantages of every single drug that he was going to prescribe to his patients. So they believed someone with a medical degree would be the best to be able to talk to him.
Was Dr. Davis quick to adapt to different medical methods as they prevailed?
Not at all. He had to make sure, once again, the efficacy and the risks that are associated with all new drugs.
How often did you come into contact with Dr. Davis?
Pretty frequently. Him and I would often go out to eat, go out for drinks to talk about our practices together, and we would go watch UNC basketball games together.
So did you say that you knew Dr. Davis personally well?
Yes.
Were you aware that Dr. Davis's father had an aggressive form of pancreatic cancer?
I wasn't informed of this information until after the passing of Dr. Davis's father.
Are you aware what Dr. Davis prescribed to his father to help him with his long-term pain?
Yes, he prescribed him Vicodin.
So we talked about earlier some legislation that went through. Do you know when that legislation was mandatory for physicians to follow?
Not until January 1, 2018.
Did Dr. Davis treat Sloan Thomas in the year 2018?
No.
So would that apply to Dr. Davis then? With this, final question. If your two daughters were to be injured playing sports, would you be comfortable letting Dr. Davis treat them as a medical professional?
Absolutely. Once again, he's a licensed medical professional, and at the end of the day, giving any sort of prescription at the time was based on doctor discretion, and I would be very comfortable letting him treat my family and anybody in general.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ross. Mr. Morrissey, what are your qualifications to hold the title of team physician?
So my qualifications are my medical degree that I obtained from the University of North Carolina, and it's sports medicine.
Do you recall what organization approached you in 2007?
Yes, in California.
What position was offered to you by Empower and Pharmaceuticals?
Medical liaison.
Could you explain that role to me or define it?
Yes, so basically what my job was to do was to talk to doctors and other physicians and to basically sell them products.
All right. Whilst working for Empower Pharma, do you know what drug made the most profit?
Yes, Vicodin.
As someone who specializes in the treatment of sports injuries, what was your education about Vicodin?
So I was told that it had passed rigorous testing, like I said, and also I was given data explaining the efficacy of the drug, and I believed it would help people with their long-term pain.
So you would say Vicodin gets the job done?
Yes.
Do you recall any changes that occurred around April 2012 to Vicodin?
I do not.
In your affidavit, you state the level of acetaminophen was lowered to 300 milligrams to avoid liver damage. Right. Is liver damage the only side effect of Vicodin?
It is not.
Could you state the other side effects?
So until 2017, it had basically only been associated with liver damage from too much of the acetaminophen aspect of the drug. But late in 2017, that's when a lot of push was made and explaining the addictive factors.
And how do you know the defendant, Dr. Aria Davis, Mr. Morrison?
So we met at a medical conference, and from there, basically we became friends and business colleagues.
Okay. Would you say Dr. Davis is good at his job?
Yes.
And I understand you did develop that close relationship. Could you go into more detail about that?
Yeah, of course. So basically, me and Dr. Davis, after we had met, we began talking, and basically we would always hang out together, just casually talking about our professions together, our practices, and we would, again, go watch basketball games together. So we frequently were in contact until I lost contact with him for a while his dad was sick.
Okay. And could you tell me what point in time you really started to notice that Dr. Davis lost his communicative ability?
Around 2016.
All right. You said 2016?
I believe so.
Okay. And what really grabbed your attention as far as him not being communicative?
Considering the fact that we were, again, casual, we would hang out together, we were colleagues, and he just all of a sudden I lost contact with him.
And as far as his work with Empower, did you notice any change there as well?
Not out of the ordinary, no.
Okay.
He didn't work with Empower, actually, so he just used Empower's products.
Okay. Do you believe he allowed personal problems to hinder his professionalism and/or decision-making skills?
Objection, speculation.
How do you respond to that?
Well, I'll just rephrase the question. So the personal problems, it's because you're such a good friend of his, you should be able to tell me really how he handled everything in the situation with his dad. Did that affect his ability?
I don't believe it affected his practice.
Do you have any information on the plaintiff, Rory Thomas, and the tragedy of Sloan Thomas? Okay. Would you have handled the deceased care differently?
Honestly, it's on a case-by-case basis, and it really depends on the doctor. Generally speaking, we start with NSAIDs, which are your ibuprofen, acetaminophen, but I can't really say whether I would have handled the case differently because I wasn't looking at it.
All right. Mr. Morrissey, did you do an affidavit?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, may I introduce this into evidence as plaintiff exhibit 4?
I don't know.
Is that the foundation?
Oh, sorry. Could you identify this document for me?
Yes, this is my affidavit.
Who would I?
Would this help you in your testimony today?
Yes, it will.
And I now put it into evidence.
I'll object.
No objection, Your Honor.
Mr. Morrissey, could you read out loud lines 138 to 141 of your affidavit, please?
Hold on. Why don't you answer the question?
It is true at times Dr. Davis may have prescribed more Vicodin HP than Sloan Thomas really needed, particularly in December 2017, when no surgery was required. It might have been advisable to try using NSAIDs for pain management prior to prescribing opioids. But had I
Stop right there, please. And then could you read lines 145 through 147, please?
Several witnesses have talked about NSIDs. I'm probably the dumbest guy in here. What are we talking about?
So we're talking about like acetaminophen and Tylenol, like basically over-the-counter pain relief. Aspirin.
And then could you read lines 145 through 147, please?
Yes. Granted, the 2017 PBR Vicodin HP fact sheet contained warnings about the dangers of opioid addiction, so I probably would have followed up with Sloan a bit more than Dr. Davis did and prescribed a shorter course of Vicodin. But honestly, I can't be sure.
All right, nothing further, Your Honor.
So to be clear, when we were talking about the switch of the formulation of Vicodin regarding to the acetaminophen, is acetaminophen an opioid?
No.
So did that have any influence really on like the pain tolerance of patients? So in the prescriptions on which you just read, it said that Dr. Davis may have prescribed more than what some might. Did any of that prescription cross over the 90 MME danger threshold?
You need to answer out loud for the record.
Oh, no.
So, and they also said, so They said that you might follow up, you might probably would have followed up with Sloan a bit more than Dr. Davis. We also said earlier that this was a case-by-case basis.
Objection, leading your honor.
What do you say to that?
Let me rephrase the question, Your Honor. Just because you would have done something differently, does that mean that it was necessarily wrong?
No, it was not necessarily wrong.
But overall, would you have necessarily done anything differently while treating Sloan Thomas?
I can't honestly say that I would have.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Yeah, we have one more question. Dr. Morrissey, you were stopped for reading the rest of your affidavit. There were certain lines. Would you please read what you were stopped for reading?
Yes, so I said, but had I been in Dr. Davis's position, I wouldn't necessarily have done anything much differently.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any reread cross?
Okay.
I like that name.
Do you recall stating that Empower's Cash Cow was Vicodin and HP?
Yes.
Would you consider yourself knowledgeable as far as Vicodin and HP is concerned?
Yes.
Okay, so then to respond to his acetaminophen doesn't really have an effect, could you also go into the early formulations of Vicodin and HP? What did it contain?
So first in
Objection,
1990.
ask and answer.
I don't believe so. I believe I did not ask that question.
Right,
And nor
Madam
did
Court
you.
Reporter, read that back for me. Overruled.
So are you talking about the MME during certain amounts of time or certain?
So, in your affidavit, you state that there are 3 different formulations.
Yes.
Regular Vicodin.
Yes, Vicodin ES and Vicodin HP.
Okay, and then can you tell me what those contained?
So those contained, as far as I knew, only would be the hydrocodone and then obviously the acetaminophen. In my affidavit, I don't recall stating the specific MME between each one of these.
You're correct. And then with that, nothing further, Your Honor.
You want to reread your verdict? You
Yes,
can?
Your Honor.
Go ahead, look at all that.
Smart decision.
Why do you like UNC?
Because I'm just simply the best, man.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Alrighty. All good?
Yes.
That's fine. All right, next witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense would like to call Connor Harling to the stand, please.
You promise that the testimony that you're about to give will be totally false, made up, and fictional?
Not necessarily.
I see that picture.
Could you please state your name for the record?
My name is Connor Harling.
Mr. Harling, could you describe your occupation?
I'm an athletic trainer at Utopia University.
And what is your educational background?
I went to Utopia University for my bachelor's and then continued on for my master's at UNC Temple.
How long have you been practicing your duties as an athletic trainer?
10 years.
How many student patients have you treated in the past 12 months at your clinic?
12 months, probably between 140 and 160.
Are you able to prescribe medication as an aid to your recovery, in your position?
Not medications.
What is your goal as a provider for these young athletes?
My goal is to enable these athletes to continue playing their sports in their best capacity.
What was your involvement in Sloan's care on November 30th, 2017?
I was the direct care provider and first responder on site for that incident.
Could you explain the nature of the incident?
Well, during the first quarter of the basketball game, he had gone down a little bit awkward and was expressing pain. So I approached him and tried to get him off the court. That way I could properly treat him in the athletic training room. And I did such by, he had swelling in his ankles, so I got him in a game-ready machine, or what's the word? Cryotherapy machine, sorry, to reduce the swelling of the ankle, and told him to get advanced care in the morning.
Okay. In your opinion, how long does it take an ankle injury, similar to Sloan's, to heal itself through physical therapy?
Through physical therapy and rehabilitation, since it's a continual injury, I'd say a month to a month and a half.
How would you rate a rotator cuff?
Rotator cuff,
Objection, Your Honor. I believe this is improper expert opinion. He was never administered as a professional.
We offered him as an expert.
He's not our expert witness. He is just a witness that we are allowing him to testify since he worked hand in hand with Sloan for his
Well,
recovery.
how do we know what he knows is,
He was his trainer, but he's not
Okay,
an expert
but-
witness.
What was his background? I don't remember.
Direct your comments to the court, not to each other.
He was Sloan's trainer. He's not our expert witness. He's just testifying what he's done.
Testified to what he saw, did, and said.
Exactly. That's it.
How long does it take a rotator cuff to heal?
Depending on the nature of the injury, depending on if it's just bruised or if it's entirely torn, with surgery, a month. If it's torn, if it's bruised, a couple days.
In a situation similar to
Hold on a second. Ladies and gentlemen, strike that answer of the witness. He's not qualified to give a medical opinion. You should play no part in the determination of any fact in this case. I get from your mind as if it never happened. Ask about what he saw, what he said, what he did.
So you treated Sloan Thomas for his ankle injury, am I correct?
For the injury on November 30th was an ankle and a shoulder injury, yes.
Did you treat him for his rotator cuff injury?
The one that occurred back in March, no, I did not.
Did you do any type of treatment in between him, his ankle and his rotator cuff injuries?
No. Well, other than I saw him. We do a pre-participatory checkup of all our athletes during the fall. We just give like a general checkup and see if anything's changed over the summer. But I don't have any contact with them between seasons and school.
When you do work with an athlete that has been injured, do you get their medical records?
Not unless they're released to me.
So you would have no way of knowing if they were on opioids?
No, I would not.
When you worked with Sloan, did he follow the physical therapy that you asked him to follow?
For the appointments that he showed up for, loosely, yes.
So he did miss appointments to do physical therapy?
Rather frequently.
Do most athletes show up and do what they're supposed to do?
Yes, generally.
And so you followed the protocol that any other athletic trainer would follow to get the athlete ready to be able to play with?
Yes.
When you injured his rotator cuff, did that happen while he was playing basketball for the university?
The initial injury, no. The following injury, yes.
Did you treat him for that following injury?
For the following injury, yes.
How did you treat him?
It was just bruised initially, so I put him in a sling for the first day following, and then had him work the muscles, doing range of motion exercises and putting light pressures on it.
Did he follow procedure then?
Initially, yes.
Initially, but then he did not follow through?
Yeah. At first, he was showing up, and then he started to show up less and less frequently leading up to Christmas break.
Did you ever try to contact him about this?
No, generally not. I mean, I'm not the kid's mother. I have hundreds of other athletes to worry about at the time. I don't have time to worry about each individual person who doesn't show up. I have other athletes to attend to.
Have you worked with other athletes that have had Dr. Barry Davis as their doctor?
Yes.
Have they ever had any issues to your knowledge?
Not as far as I know.
Just because she's the teacher doesn't mean you can't object.
Yeah, exactly.
Objection, leading.
No, that's not the right.
Wait, hold on. I had wait.
Is it thing?
Wait.
It's irrelevant.
Oh, relevance?
You guys have any other questions?
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Harling, you stated you were Sloan's athletic trainer during his time at Utopia University, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So you were the designated athletic trainer for the men's basketball team?
We don't have specific specific trainers for specific teams. It's whoever's on duty at the time.
Were you with the men's basketball team for most of their season?
I mean, I worked at the university throughout the entire season, yes, but I wasn't there at every practice, every game. I was there when I was assigned to be there.
Were you the athletic trainer that administered Sloan Thomas's pre-participatory information screening?
Yes.
During that screening, did you ever perform a personal physical examination on Sloan Thomas when he went through the pre-participatory screenings?
Yes.
Did you ever discuss any prior injuries that Sloan had?
Other than the ones he had listed, no.
Did you ever discuss prior medications?
No.
Do your athletes fill out a returning athlete questionnaire?
It's the same one as the other form.
So they do fill one out when they return?
Yeah, I mean, you fill one out every year.
Does this questionnaire ask returning athletes about any new injuries inquired outside of their season?
It's not specifically new, it's the same form, so if you add new stuff, I get the new stuff. If you don't add new stuff, then it's literally the same form as the first time you got it.
So this questionnaire asks about any medications?
Yes.
Concerning Sloan's rotator cuff injury and surgery, would you say that it's implied if a athlete undergoes a surgery such as Sloan underwent, that they would be prescribed a stronger pain medication than Advil?
Objection beyond the scope. He is a trainer, not a physician.
Rephrase the question.
Could an athletic trainer imply that after a surgery, an athlete would be prescribed a stronger pain medication than Advil?
Objection, speculation, and beyond the scope. He is a trainer. He can only answer questions about his physical training with Sloan Thomas.
What do you mean beyond the scope?
Beyond the scope of his expertise. He is only in physical
So not beyond the scope of direct examination?
No.
Beyond the scope of his expertise, all right?
Yes.
What do you mean by first part of your objection? What was that?
Speculation. She's speculating that Sloan would have gotten a higher dosage of prescription.
Take the jury out. All right, the jury's out.
Not really.
All right, this is being held in the absence of the jury. Ask your question again.
So can an athletic trainer imply that after a student athlete undergoes a surgery, such as what Sloan Thomas underwent, that they would be prescribed a higher pain medication than just NSAIDs?
Imply to who?
Implied by the athletic trainer.
I still don't understand what you're asking.
So can the athletic trainer assume that the student athlete is going to be on a different pain medication other than NSAIDs?
You assume that?
Yes.
Okay, overruled. What's your answer?
Not necessarily. It is
So-
entirely dependent on the person.
Do you remember having a deposition?
Yes.
Do you remember stating in your deposition that it is implied by an athletic trainer that after a student athlete undergoes surgery that they would be prescribed something more than NSAIDs?
No, I do not.
Now, you were there and observed Sloan injure his right ankle and left shoulder during a game against Eden University, is that correct?
Yes.
And after that injury, you immediately took him to the athletic training room for treatment, correct? And you referred him to Dr. Davis the next morning, is that right?
Not by name, but yes.
Were you ever informed of the diagnosis given by Dr. Davis for Sloan's injuries of that night?
No.
Were you ever in charge of his rehab for these injuries?
For the injuries following November 30th? Yes.
So you were doing rehab on an injury that you didn't know the exact diagnosis for?
Well, I wasn't told by Aria Davis or anybody from his office. He approached me after I told him to come back and tell me what the doctor says.
So did Sloan tell you what the exact diagnosis of his injury was?
Not the exact medical terminology, but he said I bruised my shoulder and I hurt my ankle. So I said, okay.
No further questions, Your Honor.
No big
Anything
deal,
else?
Your Honor.
Just one second.
You ready for a program?
I think you can come down. You have another witness?
No, sir.
No, Your Honor.
Any rebuttal? Rebuttal. Okay. All right, take the jury to the jury room. The jury's outside the jury room. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to get your thoughts together. Get the jury sheet together. All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've now heard the evidence. You and only you will be the judges of the fact. You will decide what happened. You should not take anything that I say during the trial to indicate that I think that any of the evidence should be believable. My role is as the judge. I will make legal decisions during the trial and have done so, and will instruct you in just a few moments after you've heard the arguments of both counsel. You must make your decision based on the evidence presented in court. Do not let rumors, suspicion, or anything you've seen or heard outside court influence your decision in any way. You should use your common sense in weighing the evidence. Consider it in light of your everyday experience with people and events, and give it whatever weight you believe that it deserves. In deciding certain facts, you must determine what testimony you do and do not believe. You are the sole judges of the credibility and believability of the witnesses. You may believe all, some, or none of what a witness has testified about. In deciding which testimony you should believe, you should use the same test of truthfulness that you use in your everyday lives. You will now be privileged to hear the closing arguments from the attorneys. Closing arguments are not evidence, but are given to you to assist you in evaluating the evidence. If during the course of making a closing argument, one or more of the attorneys attempts to restate the evidence, and your recollection of the evidence is different from the attorney's, you are to be guided exclusively by your own recollection. All right, who's going first? I guess who's going last?
Plaintiffs are going first.
Okay, maybe one or two.
I'm doing one.
All right. What says the plaintiff?
Good afternoon. I'd like to start by thanking the judge and you yourselves, the members of the jury, for being here to listen to Ms. Thomas' story about what happened to her son. I'd like to make the point that in today's society, we place a high value on human life. I swear most of us would say that our lives are priceless, as I'm sure Ms. Thomas thought her son's life was priceless. All any of us expect from anyone is for them to do their job, which is exactly what Ms. Thomas expected Dr. Davis to do. And yet, if he did so, we may not be sitting here today. Based on the evidence that was presented to you today, I'm going to provide you a roadmap of how to deliberate for this verdict. First, this roadmap begins with what negligence is. Negligence consisting of 4 components, which are a duty, a breach of that duty, causation, and damages. Dr. Davis had a duty to provide Sloan Thomas with the best medical care possible. However, he was so concerned with his own reputation as a physician that he eliminated what was best for his patient, which brings us to our breach of duty. Dr. Davis overprescribed opioids multiple times after stating he acknowledged that Sloan had presented symptoms of addiction. Which brings us to our causation. This overprescribed Vicodin led Sloan Thomas to his addiction, which could happen to any of us. It's not a choice that we can make. It's like having a mental illness. Nobody decides that, hey, I'm just going to be an addict today. This is something that was mentally happening to Sloan. And it's because of Dr. Davis's negligence that has brought us to the worst damages that any of us could possibly think of, which is the death of a bright, intelligent, goal-driven young man. Thank you for being here today, and we appreciate you listening to our story.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want to thank you for being here today and taking some time out from your busy day to help us with this matter. I would also like to thank the judge today for helping us decide this matter. Ladies of the jury, today I stand before you with a very compelling story about a boy who was predestined for greatness. Now, these success stories you've heard many times before, like LeBron James, Stephen Curry, Kobe Bryant. They had athletic abilities that no one could ever deny. They could see it far beyond their years. Well, this is not the story of Sloan Thomas. The story of Sloan Thomas is a story called Ambition, sponsored by Ms. Rory Thomas. Ms. Thomas told you today she was a committed parent. She told you she was a loving parent. She told you she would do anything for her son. Well, I ask you this. Was her son's life worth the NBA payday? Was that scholarship, was those opportunities worth more than her son's life? Well, I'm going to answer that for you. It was. Because today, you know who's here? She is. You know who's not? Her son. Because her ambition fueled him so much, he got so overwhelmed that he needed an outlet. He needed a place. He needed safety. He wanted protection. He wanted something that could comfort him because he was so stressed out. So he turned to what most people turn to, drugs, alcohol. And you know, when you're successful and you're ambitious, there's people around you that want a piece of the pie. People that want to help cash in on your success. Well, that was his best friend sitting over here, Mr. Dallas Sanchez. Although he knew what Vicodin has done to a person, because he saw it within his own sibling, his own little sister was on Vicodin and had negative side effects, he still led his friend to the very thing that was his demise. Now, Mr. Sanchez says, you know, I didn't do it. I didn't give him the drugs. Yeah, but it's like what my colleague said over here. He handed him the gun. If your friend said, I'm about to kill myself, would you hand them the gun? Or no? He pressured him. He encouraged him to go drink with him, to go let his hair down with him. He reminds me of the serpent in the Garden of Eden that told Eve, just eat this apple. Just take this apple, and you will be okay. Your pain will go away. You will feel much better. Well, you know what Sloan did? He took those drugs. And he is no longer with us today. And the thing that I'm most upset about today is that the prosecution tried to put blinders over this entire case, blinders of bias, by having Mr. Blake Spaller, their expert witness, Mrs. Blake Spaller, their expert witness up on the stand knowing that her nephew died of the very thing that this case is pertinent about? Well, let me ask you, would your judgment be clouded if your family member's killer was sitting right on that stand? Would your judgment be clouded if the dearest family member you had to your heart died and we were talking about his killer? You would be biased. And Thomas Fuller said that a fox should not be on the jury for a goose's trial, let alone let the fox testify as an expert witness in this case. My client has a constitutional right to have a fair, impartial trial. Well, this wasn't fair. This wasn't impartial, because any doctor that prescribes opioids, he'll want to throw them in the jail, well, under the jail, lock away the key, and walk home. Today, Miss Olivia told you guys that she was going to prove, and she did prove, she said she did, negligence, standard of health care, breach of duty, proximate causation that led to an injury. Let's start with negligence. She did not prove negligence. He had doctor notes of his care plan for Sloan. Breach of duty. He did the best he could with the information he was given. She had a choice. Miss Thomas had a choice to put what she wanted in there, and she left out what would exclude his chances and his opportunities to the NBA. That was her focus. Proximate causation that led to an injury. Well, the drugs that he overdosed off of were not drugs prescribed by Dr. Davis. These were illicit drugs that Dallas Sanchez, my dear friend of mine, gave to his dear friend. So finally, I would like to plead with all you guys to take what I say to heart, to not let a sad story tug on your heartstrings when the fact of the matter is an ambitious, selfish mother lost her son because of her ambitions, her exclusions, and her fear, because she thought if she told him, he wouldn't have been able to make it. But, ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today asking you to really think about, was Salome's life worth an NBA maybe payday? Nothing further, Your Honor.
Members of the jury, you have now seen and heard all the evidence and all the arguments. Well, you didn't see any because they didn't offer any of their exhibits to you, which they said they were going to do, but that's beside the point. Members of the jury have now seen and heard all the evidence and arguments of the lawyers. It is your duty to find the facts and to render a verdict reflecting that truth. You should consider all the evidence, all the arguments, all the contentions, and all the positions urged to you by the attorneys, and any other contentions that arise from this evidence. All of you must agree to your verdict. You may not reach a verdict by majority vote. This is a civil case in which the plaintiff, Roy Thomas, the parent and duly authorized personal representative and independent administrator of the estate of Slain Thomas, seeks damages. The plaintiff has the burden of proving her case by a preponderance of the evidence. That means that the plaintiff must prove to you, in light of all the evidence, that what she claims happened is more likely than not to be true. If the plaintiff fails to meet this burden, then the verdict must be for the defendant. If, after considering all the evidence, that a fact or claim is more likely than not to be true, then that claim or fact has been proven by a preponderance of the evidence. The defendant in this case has asserted the affirmative defense of comparative negligence. At least they were supposed to. Claiming the plaintiff's harm was caused by their own action. The plaintiff has the burden of proving this affirmative defense by the same burden, a preponderance of the evidence. This case has been divided into two parts, and this is the first part of the trial. Don't worry, we're not going to make you do the second part. As such, the plaintiff need not prove the amount of the damages, only that some harm has occurred. In order to prevail, the plaintiff must prove the following: that the defendant had a duty to exercise reasonable care in treating the plaintiff with drugs or medicine, that the plaintiff failed to exercise this reasonable care, that the defendant failed to exercise this reasonable care, that the plaintiff suffered an injury, and that the defendant's failure to exercise reasonable care directly and proximately caused the plaintiff's injury, meaning that but for the defendant's conduct, the death would not have occurred, of Sloan would not have occurred, and that the death was a reasonably foreseeable result of the defendant's conduct. To the extent that you determine that the defendant is liable for failing to follow the standard of care and the medical treatment provided to the plaintiff's son, you must then determine what percentage, if any, the plaintiff's harm was caused by the plaintiff's own action. You have an issue sheet that has 5 issues. There's instructions as to which issues to answer. A certain answer to the first issue will cause you to have to go to the next. All right. All right.
Let's roll.
The first order of business when you reach the jury room is to elect one of your members to be your foreperson. That foreperson should lead you in your deliberations.
I feel comfortable with the mustache. He seemed like he was very proud.
All right, while the jury's out,
Miss Vonnegut.
I'll give you a brief critique.
Yeah, we suck. It was something.
I've actually conducted this trial on my Carolina Blue Road, but only after we won the national championship. So let me give these documents to somebody.
There's one
excited to come up
thing
and do
that-
this. All right. What I'm getting ready to tell you is just my opinion, and looks like everybody out there in the audience has both a nose and a behind, right? So opinions are just like that. Everybody's got one. All right. Now, I've wondered on occasion if it's worth my time to go out and talk to the class at the beginning of the year. What I do is first of all, I usually have to tell everybody to take out a pencil and notes because I'm getting ready to tell you how to win this thing. Some people don't even bother to bring them, but that's beside the point too. I think it's worth it because there were a lot of mistakes made that I think I could have helped you by listening to my 1-hour lecture. So, having said that, let me go to the Ben. You ID'd in yourself, that was good. You talked about a dream, and then you kind of lost it. You got lost in the script, and this is the problem. Okay, you don't need to memorize the script. You need to memorize the case. You need to talk not like you are an actor, but like you are that person. You are that lawyer. You are that witness. It needs to become a part of you. When you got up this morning to come here today, you should put on that persona. And you put on your clothes. I am now lawyer so-and-so. I am now doctor so-and-so. I am now the grieving mother. And you play that persona, you become that person, so that you don't have to worry about the script. If you forget the words that you wrote down, the beautiful words you wrote down, that's fine. Just like Ms. Vonnegut said, you know the case. Just tell me what happened. I would have told you in my lecture that you got to do a couple things. You got to know your case inside and out. And I threaten to do this all the time. Ms. Vonnegut won't let me do it. But you need to know not only your case, you need to know the other side's case. And I've threatened before to say, okay, I'm sorry, you don't represent the defendant anymore. Get over here. You're the plaintiff. And you don't represent the plaintiff anymore. Get over here. You're the defendant. Now try the case.
And the high school mock trial competition that did the same case last year, they have to do both sides.
They have to do that.
They have to do it.
Now, that's probably a little advanced, and I'm not saying that the high school is advanced. That's a different set of things that they're doing there. But to me, that would be perfect. Perfect training. You've got to know the case inside and out. The only downside is you don't get to practice with your witnesses. But in reality, most lawyers don't practice with their witnesses anyway. So you need to become the lawyer, not the student playing the lawyer. What happened to you happens. The very first speech I gave after becoming a politician was the worst speech I ever gave in my life. I went home and cried. I was only 17 years old, but I went home and cried. And I said, I'm not going to ever let this happen to me again. Now, I'm not going to tell you I haven't given bad speeches before, but I usually give a pretty darn good speech. And that's because I prepare ahead of time. That's what keeps me from being nervous. Victoria, you did a great job when you picked you up and said, get in there and help him out. You know, quarterback's just not completing any passes. You got to get in there with no practice and get in there and take over. You did a great job, and you knew the information too. So it was obvious that y'all had practiced together. Mr. Hutchins, Evan, you had a great voice. You went too fast though. Very good start. Lily objected. It wasn't really a proper objection, but it did exactly what you intended it to do. It got him off track. It derailed him. And it's unethical to make an objection just for that purpose, although it happens all the time. But you can almost always craft some type of objection if you think you're getting killed. And I'm not saying you should do that, but that is a tactic. She got you off track, got you confused. You've got to know your case and not the script once again. All right, our mother, Rory, the only thing I can say about you was you needed to speak up. You had great demeanor. You knew your part very well. I felt sorry for you. You were a very good witness. Victoria, you just needed to speak up a little bit. Objection by, is it Natalia?
Yes, sir.
You looked like you were trying to get the plaintiff's attorney off. It's just what they had done to you. But I think that objection made you look bad, and I can't remember exactly what it was. There's different ways to try this case. Attacking a grieving mother is a strategy. But you need to have something like, she spent the insurance money. She shacked up with 4 guys. You need to have something bad about her that you can concretely prove before you attack a grieving mother. There's lots of ways to win this case and not attack her. I'm so sorry for your loss. I know you loved your son. I'm sure he was a wonderful man. But my doctor has a wife and child too. And talk about your client rather than attacking her. And you really attacked her in your closing.
Yeah. That was a little extra.
You started out very good in Virginia, but then you got kind of draggy. And part of it was we didn't get a real good picture, an outline in the beginning of what was going on. I would have told you if I'd come out earlier that you need to tell the story 3 times. You let your witness tell the story. Just let them tell the story. And then what happened? And then what happened? Let's talk about the night that he got injured at the basketball game. And then what happened? Let's talk about the night he got injured at the college game. I know this is difficult, but let's talk about the last time you saw your son alive. And let her tell the story. Then if you have some exhibits like pictures, then get her to tell the story again with the pictures.
Yeah.
And what was the document that you introduced?
The Viking picture.
Okay. Tell it again with that. You have a diagram, and we didn't have a diagram here, but like if you're breaking into a house, you have the person talk about the breaking and entering. You have them talk about it again with the pictures. You have them talk about it again with the diagram. You get them to tell the story as many times as you can. Use the photos, diagrams, or whatever else you have. Nobody ever passed any of these exhibits to the jury.
We were supposed to put them on the table and then they go out with the jury.
Well, okay, that's the rules, fine. The best thing is to have, and you really got screwed up with different exhibits up here and different numbers on the exhibits, and I was confused and they were confused. Each exhibit should have its own number. Each exhibit should have a copy for the court. It's going to be in evidence. That's the one you show the witnesses. You should have a copy for the court so the court knows what the heck's going on, and you should have a copy for every single juror. And then you need a copy for yourself to keep.
And Eric, you can use the exhibit numbers that were in your packet. You just need to put them on there.
Yeah.
But it's easier for Judge Ammons if, when I told you guys when you do your trial notebook, and I even gave you examples that here's your witness. What exhibits are you introducing? Well, I'm going to introduce exhibit number 1 with this witness. Here's exhibit 1, Your Honor. I'm going to introduce exhibit number 2 with this witness. Okay, I give you exhibit number 2. And that's why the trial notebooks are crucial, because they keep you organized and focused. But it gets confusing. It does.
And then you need an exhibit for the state. Even if they've already got it, you still need to give them one. Now, Natalia, once again, you're trying, you got your own strategy about how you're trying this case. You're talking about your grandmother dying. That kind of cuts both ways. You know, does she really think her grandmother dying is the same as that woman losing her son? I mean, I'm just saying what my jurors might say. It's all right to say, I'm very sorry for your loss. I myself have suffered a loss, as most of us have. And I'm very sorry for your loss. And then move on. But when you personalize it to yourself, you know, my grandmother just died. I hope your grandmother didn't just die.
She did, that's why.
Okay. That's really not relevant, and it makes you look like you're comparing those two things. Objection from Olivia, asked and answered. That's almost never a good thing to ask, and I would have told you that. Although we did not get asked and answered like we usually get, what we usually get is this side will ask a question, okay? And then y'all will ask the same question. And then this side pops up and goes, ask and answer. Well, that's not a problem.
And remember I told you guys, that's why you don't ask it. And I feel bad because like those of you who do law and legal in the spring, he will be there. But this class was on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And trying to get Judge Ammons to miss a Tuesday, Thursday to come was really tough. Because honestly, this is the first time he's not come to a class and talked to them. But it's just scheduling, yeah.
All right, you did have a very good voice, Natalia. You were very aggressive demeanor. And at this point, you were aggressive without being a jerk. I think maybe later on, particularly in the closing, you may have crossed over. It depends on what the jury thinks, though. You got your points out. It's tough to be tough on a grieving parent, and but I did like when you said, "Let me refocus you." That's a wonderful way to stop it. You know, let me refocus you. And y'all let her run all over your witness without any objections. Well, that's a strategy too. Maybe you want her to beat up your witness so you can let the jury see how mean these people are over here. So there's all kinds of strategies. And what I'm saying to you, there's no right or wrong way to do some of these things. Dallas, Sanchez, good voice, knew your part, objection, the audience had to just about spit on you. They coughed all over you to get you to object. And y'all finally did object. I can't remember what the objection was. Where's Dallas? And you acted very naturally. You acted very naturally like a buddy, like a basketball playing buddy. So I think you did a good job. Ben, you bounced back here. You did good. You had a good voice. You had good questions. On the opinion question, that was improper. I don't know what that means. Eric Baki, very good use of the depot. Very good use of the text. Very good cross in general. And whoever did the redirect, it was a good redirect. It was short and to the point. Cross should be short, get your points and get out, and redirect should be short. And one thing that we got an objection to, on redirect, whoever's redirected almost always asks leading questions. That's just what happens. They almost always ask leading questions, and that is objection. Dr. Spaller? Great. I gotta ask, do you have some medical background?
I'm a healthcare communication and exercise science.
Yeah, I figured you had to
Judge
have.
Ammons, this is Kaylee who objected to me last year.
Yeah, my character is longer.
The attorney.
Yeah.
And said, I object to Ms. Vonnegut.
She's not counsel for the defense.
Basically,
I think I told you it's never a good thing to object to the teacher, although I told them to object today. All right, great voice.
I still love you, Vonnegut.
And I mean this as a compliment. You sounded like a real doctor.
Yeah.
You sounded arrogant. And real doctors are usually like that, particularly on the witness stand. You were a very good witness. You knew your part very well. And then I have the question about, do you have a medical background? Olivia, another thing I would have told y'all is that almost everybody has some idiosyncrasy. And what did you do then? And what happened then? Okay, what happened then? Okay, what happened then?
That's how you were doing.
Yeah, you put those either at the end or the beginning of every sentence, and you will never really understand how irritating it is until you read a transcript of yourself doing this or see this video of you doing it. But several of you did that, and I do that too. I've got one lawyer who cannot ask a question without saying Your Honor. Every question begins with Your Honor. Your Honor. I had another lawyer who could not finish a question. She could not get an answer to a question without saying, okay. You would give your answer, she'd go, okay. And then she'd ask the next question. So, Olivia, you do you had a fairly good intro of your expert. It's a good direct, you got your points and got out. And you let the witness testify. Where are you? There you are, right there. You let the witness testify. I did want you to ask the doctor what the inset was. I finally asked it later on during the trial. Good response to her objection. Her objection was not valid. And then Evan got in here too. Oh, you were crossing. Good, I thought it was a good cross, but you talked too fast. And I understand when you get nervous, and plus all of this is being timed. I know she won't let you use your notes. I don't, I always use my notes. At least have them there. And I don't want to be bound by the clock either. So we're doing something very unreal. We're trying this case in 3 hours, which wouldn't happen ordinarily. So I can understand why you might get nervous and speak too fast. Dr. Davis, good voice, good demeanor, you knew your part. You also sounded like a doctor. You did a good job on regret and sorry to the mother. So you were more compassionate to the mother, doctor, and you know, that's what you got to do. They got to like you in order not to slam you. Eric? Yes, Eric?
Yes, sir.
You say now a lot before the question. You go now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Great voice, great demeanor, good questions to a point, and then you got sidetracked by putting on evidence. And I know there's a lot of technical rules to putting on evidence, but there's a huge difference between watching somebody just flow. You know, I show you what's been marked as Exhibit 4. You recognize it. Will it aid you in your testimony? Is it a fair and accurate representation of what it shows? It just flows rather than, you know, getting the numbers wrong and trying to introduce it before it's time. And of course, none of y'all are lawyers. And I'm impressed every year by the skill that y'all have. In fact, some of you, I say this every time, some of you did a better job today than some of the lawyers I see every damn week. So sometimes I forget that you're not lawyers, not law students at least. Very technical rules, and we have reason for that. You got to know the rules. You started great, but then got lost. Olivia, once again, this time you were going and then you were also doing the and what's next. And I don't know why you did this, but you kept looking at me. Well, I do know, I'm a good-looking guy, yeah. I have other lawyers that do that sometimes when they're not sure about whether I'm going to jump on them or they're going to get an objection. Don't look at the judge. Look at your witness, okay? And I know it's hard not to look at them. But I did notice that you kept looking. And almost every time I looked up, you would shift from, and maybe it's just because I was moving, but it looks almost like you're asking for approval. And you were doing fine. You didn't need my approval. But you really need to kill this guy, okay? He is the bad guy. You need to be more aggressive with him. And talk about the number of pills. Is that what the one, you see the witness that I asked at the pills? You gave him how many pills on this date? 42 for 7 days? How many is he supposed to take a day? And then you gave him 90 pills for 30 days or whatever it was, and you did that 3 times? You gave him a total of 5,000 whatever pills, 4,488 pills, and then you never saw him again? And the question I asked, this was just before he died. You got to get this guy. You got to show this guy is too damn busy or too damn greedy or something to have taken care of this boy and just left him out there. And you did a very good redirect. You, I guess. Yeah, we're on the defense evidence. Very good redirect. I can't remember what it was, but it was good. Witness Darren Wilson. Dorian Wilson. Your voice was too low. And I didn't know whether you were getting upset in character or you're getting upset out of character. But that's when I kind of backed off and let Ms. Vonnegut take over. I'm not really sure what the purpose of she was. Was it just to get the alcohol?
It was to show that Sloan had confided in her that his mom's addiction was really too much for him to handle.
Okay, so that fed into your attacking her later on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You got some good points with her, but like I said, I just really wasn't sure what the purpose of her testimony was. And Victoria Jenkins, you said a couple times, not a lot, but you did do that. You had a great voice, and then you started saying "and" a couple times. You asked great questions, and on this witness, you didn't take a lot of time with her. You got your points and then got out, which is what you're supposed to do on cross. I've seen many great cross examinations where the lawyer should have stopped, and then they cover it up with a bunch of junk that makes the jury forget the good things. Dr. Finn, you got medical training too?
No.
How about you, Doctor?
No.
Both of y'all did a very good job. Now, this is the best doctor we had over here. We had very good expert witnesses and very good doctors here. You had a good voice, good demeanor. You knew your part. Very something. I don't know what that says. A very good witness, and you sounded like a doctor. And Hudson, is that Evan? I don't know why I wrote down Kruger. You did a good job of qualifying him, but you said, and I'm not being critical because I said I do it too. That's just something you need to think about when you're talking to people. And like I said, once you see the video of it, you'll really notice it. Ben, you did a good job, and you got some great points on cross. Connor, good voice, good demeanor, and you knew your part well. And quite frankly, you look like a sports dude.
My dad's the athletic trainer at Ammons.
Really?
Yeah. Well, he's the head of the department. So
Yeah, once again, real world experience. You got to be careful saying that you look real good in your part, because I've told in years past I've told some of the medical people, some of the people that are playing cops, you look like a real one. We had a girl who played a prostitute, and I almost said you look like a real one. But she really did. She really did. Particularly when she pulled the dollar bill or something out of her sleeve. She was very good. I thought she was. Mr. Baki,
Where? I have not seen it.
I got Endo K. Better. Did not have to introduce him again. You did not have to introduce anything this time, and you got better. You got off track by the objection. And Ben, who's Ben? Okay. Great objection. I overruled it. And then she, because it was you, right? I overruled it, and then he asked the exact question that I told him not to, and then y'all just sit there. So even when the judge rules against you, you got to be aware. I mean, he objected because you objected because it was medical.
Yeah.
I said no. He can testify to this, this, and this, and then the very first thing he asked is a medical question, and then I'm waiting for y'all to object. So that's when I told the judge. In fact, he gave the answer. Once he gave the answer, and y'all didn't object, then I told the jury to disregard it. So. One thing that happens to real lawyers is sometimes you just turn yourself off. And you get a ruling from the judge and you turn yourself off. Closing. Olivia, what does that say? Oh, it's your last name. Once again, you said a little bit. You had a great start. And you used what I call word pictures. Okay? I cut my hand. I lacerated my hand. Now, what is more graphic? All right? So you used word pictures. High value. I love that. High value on his life. Do your job. Okay? Very good. I thought it was very good. You went over the elements. Very good. I love the fact that you stood there with the picture of the victim the whole time. The only criticism I have is it was way too short. Okay? It's just way too short. I would have hit those pills. I would have told them every time I got a chance. He gave 42 pills for 7 days. He gave him 90 pills for 30 days. And he did that 3 times. And then, 1 month before he died, he gave him how many pills he gave him again. So you needed to spell out the evidence a little bit better, the number of pills and the number of times. Once again, I don't know how much time she gives you, what, 5 minutes? Yeah. Which is way too short, but you didn't, you should use the whole 5 minutes. But I thought it was very good. Natalia, once again, what I have here is she attacked the mother, and that's risky. There's a way to, let me give you a quick example. We tried a case one time, and the defendant was charged with a crime, and his mother was the alibi witness, okay? And the DA just attacked the mother. How do you know he was with you on that day? How do you know it wasn't the day before? How do you know it was the day after? How do you know it wasn't the week before? You're lying for your son. Well, that upset some of the jurors, and they hung the jury up, okay? I had to retry it because I was the rookie prosecutor. You know what I asked the mother in cross-examination after she gave the alibi? And you love your son, don't you? No further questions. Those jurors went back and went, that damn mother was lying. I didn't attack her. I just gave the motive of why she should lie. So I'm not saying you shouldn't do this. I'm just saying it's very risky. You were very passionate, which is very good. I thought you talked just a little bit too fast. And I was confused a little bit during it. It's kind of like this. If the facts are for you, then you raise the facts. You know, you talk about the facts. If the law is for you, then you talk about the law. If both of them are for you, you talk about both. If neither of them are for you, you raise hell. And that seemed to be what you were doing, was raising hell. I did like what you said here. You said, don't let a sad story tug at your heartstrings. That was very good. Attacking the mother, no. I thought you should have built your client up more. You know, he has done this with his life, which you would have had to put on evidence of that. But he is a doctor. He went, you know, surely y'all could have made something up about how, you know, he had to wash dishes or something to get through med school or something. I mean, I don't know how much of this stuff.
They're ready.
They're ready?
No, hungry.
Once again, overall, I thought all of you did a very good job. Like I said, some of the performances I saw were better than what I see every week with the real lawyers that I have to deal with. I'm very proud of you for doing this. I hope that what I said in the beginning didn't make you nervous. Because to me, this is fun. This is what, and the one person in the whole time I've been doing this who talked about what a horrible experience this was, I said, well, maybe this shows you that this is not what you ought to do with your life. So it's a good experience. And that person later did come back and say to me, you know, that she had overreacted in the courtroom. But to me, this is just neat, that y'all are at this level, at this stage of your lives. And I appreciate it. And all the folks who were witnesses, thank y'all very much. Okay?
And guys, you did a great job. Eric, I was asking questions to teach you what questions to ask next time. And that's why I did it. Not because you weren't asking, I was just trying to give you education, all of you. That's why I was asking questions, to show you. Because it's hard to do that in class because you're not in this setting. You have to be in this setting because it's different. But you guys were doing a great job. I mean, you were. But I was trying to say, see, look at this. And then I give you a little room. But sometimes you just, that's how you learn. Most attorneys do not do this. If you don't take trial advocacy in law school, you don't do this. My husband never took trial advocacy. I never went in the courtroom. He is in the courtroom for bankruptcy. Now, granted, it's different, but his first, one of the jobs in the JAG Corps was legal defense. Guess who did his trial notebook, had to help him with witnesses because he never took it. So one of the things is, you know, only 10 to 15% attorneys do trial work. They really do. There are other areas of law that you can do. It's not like you have to be in a courtroom. So you guys did a really good job, but it also taught you how prepared you got to be, how you have to be on top of it. The organization of those trial notebooks are crucial because you got to know where to find stuff.
And only a small percentage of the people who do trial work are actually very good at it. I got people on the staff down here in the DA's office and the public defender's office who are just not very good trial lawyers. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's true. I've told several of them, I said, maybe you need to find something else to do with your life.
Yeah.
And they try very few cases. We try very few cases down here. Have them come on in.
I'll have them come on
So,
in.
any of you who are looking to go to law, finish up college and looking to go to law school, I would encourage you to consider trial work. My daughter's a second-year student at Carolina, and she wouldn't do trial work if it paid her $1 million a year. But, you know, maybe that's because she saw me all my life, all her life. she's going to be an international lawyer and save the world. God be with her. At least till she finds out she's got debts.
Yeah, exactly. When those student loans kick in, you realize very quickly.
All right, let's bring them in. And we need people to say the word.
We do.
If somebody lives or dies, it's all on you.
All right, where's my clerk? Bring the court to order.
Lance, bring the court to order.
All rise. Court is now in session.
Okay, have a seat. Who speaks for this jury? I do. And tell me your last name, ma'am.
Jane Shaw.
Ms. Shaw, just answer my questions, just yes or no.
Okay,
Has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?
we have.
All right, and have you properly marked the verdict form?
We have.
Have you signed the date?
Yes, sir.
All right, you hand it to the bailiff. And then you can have a seat. Okay, I'm going to send you back to the jury room and ask you to reread the instructions after each of the questions.
Oh, then I screwed up because I thought what you read didn't come in.
Or did you tell them to do something different? Who won't do that?
Just, yeah, because he didn't read me that last part. I only heard the questions. So sorry, sir.
All right, just read the first the two issues. Madam Foreperson, please stand. Are you want me to do it?
No, Zach can stand up there.
You should just read the first two.
Yeah.
Did the defendant owe a duty of care to the plaintiff? The answer was yes. Second issue is, did the defendant breach the duty of care? The answer is no.
Okay. Is that your unanimous verdict? Indicate by raising your right hand. See, 12 hands, 13 hands. All right. That y'all should have stopped at that point. Once you get to a no, you don't answer the rest of the questions. They did answer number 3 that the plaintiff was injured, but it wasn't the defendant's fault. Okay, they didn't get to the percentage thing, so it's probably good. All right, what I'd like to do now is to have each of the jurors briefly give us a quick 30, 60-second critique of what you saw.
And tell them who you are, because the students don't know everybody. That's okay.
Kevin, we'll start with you, man.
I'm Kevin Hyde. I work, I'm a retired public school teacher, Terry Saber part-time, but I work at Methodist in the evening college. I had political science. I thought the witnesses were outstanding. Every one of them was believable, on point. I used to coach mock trial at the high school level. I would have taken all of you with me to any competition. Y'all were right on point. Your closing, man, was gold. I wanted to say, can the jury say amen? You were excellent.
I told you it was risky, but it might work. These are cutthroat jurors.
And Adam and Eve thing, honestly.
Thank you.
All right, next.
I'm Stacy Prevett. I'm the Assistant Director of Annual Giving at Methodist University. It's my first time ever in a courtroom, so I'm in awe of what you have done. I think y'all did a great job. I think a little bit more thorough evidence support would be really good in some of the instances, but overall, very good job.
Mark Fine, Chair of Psychology at Methodist University, and I would echo the witnesses were fantastic. I thought they were really right on. The only critique I really have is to kind of hold to the general ideas, like be willing to flow with it. If somebody throws you with an objection, or if you lose track of where you're going, if you have the big picture in mind, like you should be coming in here, I think, already knowing what your story is about what happened. But otherwise, I thought you guys did a great job, way better than I did when I was in high school.
Yes, sir.
I'm Terry Randall. I work in graduate education at Ammons University as an adjunct, and I thought you all did a wonderful job as well. A couple of questions as we went through all of the, Terry, I know that when you talk about addiction, it's a very complicated issue. And my question was, in my own mind, was, when did he really start using? Was it because of the injury and the prescription medication, and or when there was, quote, missing medication? I wondered about if the mother was involved in, getting involved in medication. So that was a couple of questions in my mind that kind of left unanswered. But
so she really vilified this mother for you.
Successfully.
So anyway, but yes, I think you did a wonderful job. And the last thing I would say is just, have it here, and when you present it. Because sometimes head knowledge is, you can forget and so forth. If you have it here, anyway, you can go right on.
Okay, next.
I'm Natalie Paul Wall, I'm a student. I think everybody did great. Just remember to keep professional. If you start to lose your cool, you can take a deep breath, step back, look at your notes, and then gather your thoughts and hit it again.
And you saw a little bit of that, didn't you?
Yes.
Zach Involsky, head men's lacrosse coach at Methodist. First time here doing this with you guys. I enjoyed my experience with you. You guys did everything to your best abilities. I definitely was waiting for a couple more objections during some back and forth, but I understand obviously you guys work hard at it.
James Dan, I'm a student at Methodist, major in psychology, minor in law, and religious studies. As far as lacking, I wanted more evidence. Y'all brought up the point that he, as the doctor, hands out this pamphlet that he emphasized, he makes sure someone signs. Where's the signed copy that either the mother signed it or the student signed it? Way more objections. Throw each other off. I love a good battle. All day long. Other than that, pretty cool. Pretty awesome experience being in this box.
I'm a student. I've gonna hit on a few things. Tori, I think you did really good with picking up with the opening. And I think it's really good that all you guys knew each other's part as well, because it was needed. Olivia, you did really good with the closing. I enjoyed it. I like your reference to the roadmap. Natalia, I thought your closing was really good. You went in hard and you made a point. I think we all got it. But overall, it was really good. Thank you.
Jada, how many of these have you done?
I think this is my fourth one.
But how many trials? Because you did civil lit and you did long leave. She's done 2 of these.
It's good.
My name is Janisha Gates. I'm a senior justice studies and applied physical science major.
And tell the most important part. Where's Carolyn? Carolyn, she was our grieving mother in law and legal.
Girl, you were good.
She had a picture of her son, was weeping in the audience. Oh, she was our weeping mother whose son was shot and killed by the officer.
Yeah, don't be afraid to really get into character. Overall, I think you got a good job, especially you, Natalia, and I was in the Jesus. Just one thing, I want to echo what she said, keep professional, especially with the professor that's trying to get brain. Professional, keep it classy, don't get too heated. At the end of the day, just have fun and learn something new. Hi, my name is Saquita Ninjab. I'm a forensic science major at criminal justice with 2 minors in legal studies and biology. I think you guys did an exceptional job. Natalia, kudos. I don't know your name.
Evan?
Yeah, yes. Also did an amazing job. You two started really started in the beginning. I think you did an exceptional job. Next time, guys, just if you get thrown off, just keep your cool and just stay in character. But overall, you did an exceptional job.
Hi, my name is Pila. I'm a double major in applied forensic science and psych. First of all, I want to commend you all for doing an amazing job, because most of you, it's like your first time doing this. I really commend you guys. And secondly, I also wanted to emphasize on the fact that working together as a group is a very important factor, and you have to, learn to incorporate that in your, sections, I guess. So overall, it was a really good performance.
My name is Sarah C. I'm an instructor in Justice Studies. This is probably my 6th or 7th time being on the jury. I think you all did a good job. Some things is always keep in mind that it's not so much about memorizing the part as it is a feeling that you know the information. It's not knowing it word for word, it's just being able to get your point across and express that. Because you'll find a lot of things in life people try to memorize, and we do a poor job long-term memorization, right? It's about getting the information and being able to recall it and fit it back. So keep that in mind. And I also say that keeping the professionalism across the board, you are going to get frustrated. You're going to be thrown off by people in life, not just in the courtroom. And so it's the recovery and how you recover from it, and realizing that you're a team and somebody else has your back if you see that there's an issue, and keeping that in mind, that it's not just one person, that it's everybody in the team effort. But overall, good job.
My name is Tina Miller. I'm the director of Methodist University at night. This is my first mock trial, and I'm very excited to be here and to see what you all have done. Amazing, amazing job. And I know for a lot of you, it's your very first time doing this, and you did a tremendous job, given the circumstances of standing up in front of people who some of you probably have worked with during your studies at Methodist. The witnesses, all of you did a tremendous job. Great job. You were very much in character, very natural for the most part in what you were doing. And I would echo what everyone else has said for all of you who are sitting up here. You are a team, and professionalism is very important. And being natural and knowing what you're doing is very critical. So the more you know and the more you study, you won't get so thrown off quickly if you just let it come naturally instead of trying to follow the script. So the more study you can do and the more prepared you can be, perhaps won't give as many difficulties in your standing up there. So let it be natural.
All right, we have 2 alumni out there. We have Ms. Bev and Caitlin. Stand up. You both have been attorneys, so you give your critique because they both graduated. Bev, Caitlin, what do you guys think? Your critiques?
I think that you guys should have been elected like 20 times more than you did. I think that you guys got scared, and you can tell it sometimes. But the witnesses all did a great job. I think that it just needed to be like a little more punch behind it, personally.
Well, I wasn't expecting to be put on the spot. Since I am hearing the top later, I've been preparing you for this for about a month now, calling you guys a week. Ben, have you done this? Have you done that? So overall, y'all did great. Tell you, I wouldn't have went in full force. I would have waited and then looked, okay, Mama did this. She's guilty, just as, our daughter may be guilty, but Mother's father did. So technically, I'm in my daughter be guilty, and son died, I'm sorry for your loss. Things happen, but y'all did great. More objections, I would like more objections for y'all. Too bad you didn't win. Also, remember that your witnesses know their part. You don't have to coach them. I saw both sides kind of coaching their witnesses, and I think we see things that y'all don't see, and it's okay, because that's how you learn. Like, I watched my video, and I was like, the opening girl. But that's how we learn, and that's how I learned how to publicly speak, is just continue to watch myself and teach myself. So use this as a learning experience. I have to talk to criminals every day, and I'm like, all right, Judge, you can't just cuss them out because you know what they've done. Just why do you do it, more of things. So you know their story, they're going to tell it, and just ask questions, what, when, where, and how.
And this happens in real life too. Lawyers don't see the forest for the trees sometimes. In fact, when I was trying cases, and I tried about 150 jury trials, I always Sometimes during the trial, you go to the clerk, or the court reporter, or the bailiff, or all of them, and say, how am I doing? How am I doing? Because they would see things that as a lawyer I just missed. When you go to law school, they really they mess with your mind. They change the way you think about things. You don't think like a regular person ever again. You don't. I can see it happening to my daughter. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying that that's the way it is. You need to have somebody who doesn't have that legal training to help. You need to have somebody who's not as emotional about it to help you. So that's an excellent point there. And like I said at the beginning, it's not the witness's job to win the case. It's the witness's job to be believable in their character.
And to tell the story. They're your story. You know, and you don't coach them, but you work with them to make sure they know their role and what they're going to testify about. Your witnesses knew their parts. They really knew their parts. There was no issue about that at all. They knew their parts.
There were several lawyers in here, including me, who thought that Natalia maybe went overboard. That that's a very, very risky strategy, attacking a mother like that. That you can win the case without that. But apparently, like I said, y'all are cutthroat people, and you're just ready to cut the mother's throat. The other thing about this that isn't real is that you would never have a jury like this.
Yeah.
You would never have a jury of people that are this educated, people that are this close in what they've done, in their shared experience. You would have a jury that you could hand-pick, the two sides and hand-pick over the course of a day or two. You would know a whole lot more about these jurors. So that's one very unreal aspect of this. I really like the fact that they come back with a verdict, but I don't want any of you to be overly excited or overly upset by the verdict, because this is not, to me, this is not what this is about, winning or losing this case. It's about learning about how the process works and learning, is this something I want to do with the rest of my life? And I think we all know Natalia is going to become a very famous defense attorney and barbecue people at the state, particularly depositions. And we got a couple other people here that are probably going to go to med school.
Well, I want to take this time to thank Judge Ammons, because he every year does this. It's real something. He is in the other room, but Paul Joseph and the communications, everybody in communications who comes, and they do the cameras, and they film everything, and then they put it on the computer for, if you get a Monarch, was it MU Moments or Monarch Moments, you can watch it. But every year, Paul does this with his students, and I cannot thank Paul Joseph for doing this. All the years he has done it enough. So, and this bailiff's normally in with us. So,
Ken.
Yeah, Ken's normally here. But I hope, jury, when you see the email for next semester, we're doing a criminal trial. So I hope you guys will volunteer for the criminal trial, because that's a whole different ballgame. But I want to thank all of the jury. We appreciate you guys coming. So thank you all. Thank you to parents who came. Thank you to friends who came. My students who are here, make sure you come sign my sheet so you get credit for being here.
Before you leave,